Chapter 51. Definitely. We, S.H.I.E.L.D, respect the rules of others. Lewis said very seriously, but there was no seriousness in his tone. General Ross was almost staggered by Lewis' words. Considering the actions of you gangsters, how dare you say that you follow the rules? The two followed General Ross to the laboratory below. Emmy Blanche is shirtless, ready for the super soldier experiment. How's the situation? General Ross asked. General, I'm fine. Emmy Blankis nodded, and his eyes fell on Lewis and Black Widow behind General Ross. Who are these two people? I Blankis asked suspiciously. S.H.I.E.L.D agent, you can leave this matter alone, good luck. Yes, Emmy Blanche is willing to serve General Ross for life. Like a fanatic, Emmy Blanche showed his loyalty to General Ross in his eyes. Perhaps only such a loyal dog can become a monster that hates that. General Ross walked out of the laboratory, and looked inside through the glass window of the laboratory. Louis is also on the sidelines with Black Widow. What is this doing? Black Widow asked softly. The experimenters are injecting a blood serum into the body of Emmy Blankis. The purpose of the human experiment is to build a powerful army. Lewis explained. Yumi Blankis, who had been injected with the serum, cried out in pain. Even an iron-blooded tough guy couldn't resist such heart-piercing pain. He looks distressed. Would such an experiment kill dead man? No, but it doesn't seem to be developing in the expected direction. It seems that our General Ross will be disappointed. Lewis said jokingly. Through the power of space, Lewis could feel that the cells in Yumi Blankis' body were constantly being torn apart and then healed again. It is a destructive means of self-destruction and healing. It's just that there's a balance right now. This allowed Yumi Blankis to survive, but the direction of evolution was definitely not as good as imagined. The ability to heal slowly began to outweigh the power to destroy. But it didn't change like Red Titan or Green Titan. This is a strange thing. In Lewis' eyes, the bones of Emmy Blankis began to grow externally. Although it has not been highlighted yet, the density of the bones is definitely beyond the normal level. And it's still going on. This requires constantly energy absorbing. Yumi Blankis' body became thinner at a speed visible to the naked eye. These are things only Louis can observe. But in the eyes of General Ross, Emmy Blankis looked as if the experiment failed, but his life was saved. Humph! General Ross snorted coldly. He didn't expect that Emmy Blanche would fail. Lewis looked at Yumi Blankis lying in the laboratory with great interest. He succeeded. Also failed. Can I go down and have a look at him? Lewis expressed his interest in Yumi Blanche's. Anything. General Ross didn't refuse. The performance of Emmy Blankis disappointed him a bit. He now needs to think about how to capture the Green Titan. Lewis walked into the laboratory, and Emmy Blankis had already passed out due to excessive pain. In his body, chaotic and disorderly forces are rushing and stimulating. It is like a source, requiring countless energies to stimulate his growth. Lewis is like a rich guy suddenly interested. But he lost his patience in an instant. Shaking his head, he said with some regret, "It's a pity." Black Widow thought that Lewis was lamenting the failure of this experiment. But only Lewis knew that the blood of the Red Titan and the abomination had all been collected in his body space. General Ross, we will leave first. The previous invitation is still valid until we leave the city, Lewis said. I still say that, I refuse. General Ross stood by his decision. Lewis showed a sneer, and said lightly, who knows? Leaving the army station, the corners of Lewis' mouth suddenly curled up. Within the coverage of the power of space, Lewis found an interesting object. You go back first, I still have something to do. Lewis opened the space barrier and stepped forward, leaving Black Widow in place. Hey, you don't act on your own. Black Widow stomped angrily when he saw Lewis disappear. But there is no way. With such a elusive ability, even if he wanted to find Lewis, it would be very difficult. Newsstand on the street. A man wearing a baseball cap asked for a newspaper and lowered the brim of his hat. He is Bruce Banner. You can also call him Green Titan. Definitely, he himself doesn't like this title. He heard the sound of fighting from the military station yesterday, so today he took the risk to see what happened here. Most importantly, his girlfriend, Betty, is still here. I really hope nothing happened to her. Bruce Banner walked cautiously on the side of the road, and ran into a man who looked like a suit and leather shoes. Hey, you hit me. Sorry, I didn't see it. This is my latest dress, do you want to end it with an apology? I have no money to pay you. How about kneeling down and apologizing? The man is aggressive and pampered for a long time, making him look like he can beat 5 Bruce Banners. Bruce Banner gritted his teeth and didn't speak. Just now he almost wanted to burst into anger and turn into a Green Titan. But he forcibly held back. However, now he can only watch this man's fist hit him. Click. Gala. There was a sound of bones being broken, and Bruce Banner, who closed his eyes tightly, saw a nobleman with a friendly smile on his face grabbing the man's wrist. Bullying people is not a good habit, Lewis said indifferently. Turning to look at Bruce Banner, showing a usual smile, "Hi, let's meet, my name is Lewis Stark." Chapter 52. In a roadside coffee shop. Bruce Banner couldn't be more grateful to Lewis. "Thank you very much, Mr. Lewis." "You are welcome." Lewis took a sip of coffee, looked up at Bruce Banner with a smile. "Dr. Bruce Banner." Bruce Banner's mind went blank for a moment. "You, how do you know my name? Did you come to find me specially?" Bruce Banner wanted to leave, but Louis held his shoulder. "Don't be nervous, I'm not with the military," Lewis said with a kind smile. "I'm from SHIELD. Definitely, these are not important. What's important is that I can help you and help you solve your problems, such as maintaining your sanity after transforming into that kind of monster. I don't want to be that kind of monster again, never again." Bruce Banner shook his head. He's been trying to keep himself from turning into a Green Titan. For this reason, he went to learn yoga, judo. Just to keep myself calm. You have no way to resist. Since that's the case, why don't you try to use that power? I can help you. Lewis pressed Bruce Banner on the chair and said softly. "You won't understand. The consciousness is blank. After waking up, there are ruins and wreckage around. People are afraid of me, afraid that I will kill them." Bruce Banner lowered his head in disappointment, talking about what happened to him. "Then you should trust me even more, believe that I can keep you rational, and I won't harm you." Lewis was bewitching Bruce Banner. For Lewis, Bruce Banner's character is very suitable to be a younger brother. Definitely, it would be even better if he was so docile after transforming. "What do I need to do?" "First, give me a drop of your blood." "Then what?" "Then just wait for my news." "Okay, but how do you get my blood?" Bruce Banner hadn't finished speaking when he felt his arm was bitten by a mosquito. But looking at the past, there are no traces. Looking up again, the man who called himself Lewis Stark disappeared. This once made Bruce Banner suspect that he was dreaming just now. Was it because he was too nervous during this time? Bruce Banner was going to pay for the coffee. "Mr. Lewis has already paid the bill just now," the salesman said. Bruce Banner felt his head froze for 3 seconds. All that just now was not a dream. I really met that person named Lewis Stark. Back to the hotel. Lewis returned to the room, and the moment he opened the door, a black shadow rushed out, aiming a pistol at Lewis' head. "You are so weak, you actually left me to move around freely, what did you do?" Black Widow had a cold face, and really wanted to pull the trigger and kill the soul of Lewis. "Hey, take it easy, don't be nervous, it's just some private matter, it has nothing to do with the task, not at all." Lewis didn't panic at all. But with their hands raised, it looked like the two of them were playing some kind of special game. "Who did you go to meet? You smell like a slum." Black Widow asked Lewis, not intending to let go. "Bruce Banner." Lewis confessed honestly. Black Widow swept his leg and kicked at Lewis' waist. But Lewis moved more quickly, reacted in time, and counterattacked, pressing Black Widow under him. "Caw caw caw." Lewis took out Black Widow's pistol in a few clicks and disassembled it into parts. The parts jingled and fell to the ground, making a crisp sound. "Tisk tisk tisk, it's better for women to stay away from these dangerous objects," Lewis said with a teaser. "Let go!" Black Widow shouted. The other leg kicked at Louis's head, but was easily caught by Louis. "I just chatted with Bruce Banner about some ideals in life, and by the way, I asked him to borrow a little thing." "What the hell are you trying to do?" Black Widow snapped. Everything Lewis has done has gone beyond the scope of the task given by Fury. This made Black Widow have to suspect that Lewis has the possibility of betraying SHIELD. "I want the king is in the world." Lewis lowered his voice, and there was a moment of silence in his eyes, seeing everything in the world as ants. almost froze Black Widow's soul. But immediately, Louis smiled like a spring breeze, dispelling all the bad things in the world. Sunny and innocent. Sorry, I was just kidding you. I just want to study the evolutionary blood of the Green Titan. Will S.H.I.E.L.D. interfere with the research of the members? Louis asked. Won't. Black Widow still had lingering fears about what Louis said just now, the king is in the world. But the smiling, harmless Louis in front of him also looked more real. After getting an affirmative answer, Louis nodded in satisfaction. I'm going to Stark Industries laboratory here to do some research. If you're not interested, you can also go to the military station. I think the final decisive battle is about to begin. Louis kindly reminded. You don't need to tell me, I will do the same. Black Widow looked at the back of Louis leaving, and his heart, which had been raised all the time, finally fell to the ground. Louis, a man, has a mystery beyond everything. At that moment, she even really thought that Louis was a born king. Chapter 53. Stark Industries. There are many laboratories all over the world. What Louis is now is just one of them. Under the ultramicroscope, the fluctuations of the three kinds of blood can be seen clearly. The abomination has a strong aggressiveness, and it will devour and destroy the blood it touches. However, the madness of the abomination also consumes its own vitality. Banner's blood lacks that madness, but is aggressive. However, as long as you don't mess with it, there will be no problem. The most stable is the blood of General Ross. Zhongzheng is peaceful and powerful. The energy fluctuations of the three kinds of blood are almost the same. If you have to name a high ground, hatred is obviously the most powerful. Louis divided the three kinds of blood into half and mixed them. The enemy was extremely jealous when they met, and the burst of aura forced Louis to use space power to isolate the laboratory. Three homologous forces are fighting, devouring. Even the most peaceful Red Titan blood is in rage. But what's interesting is that the blood of the Red Titan and the abomination is madly attacking the blood of the Green Titan. At the same time, on the ground, General Ross looked at Imi Blanche, who had changed into a loathsome one, with a trace of pity in his eyes. Such insanity, such extreme aggressive tendencies. Imi Blanche is undoubtedly a failure. But the only use of the failed product is to fight the Green Titan to the death. Bone spurs grew out of the loathsome back, and the bones of the entire body showed the growth state of an exoskeleton. Every attack can bring a series of blood from the Green Titan. Even if it has a super high-speed recovery ability, it can be recovered in a short time. Black Widow saw such a battle, and started to record it immediately. These two monsters must be recorded in the record. I thought there were only Green Titans, but I didn't expect General Ross to be a Red Titan, and after the experiment, Imi Blanche became an abomination. This is simply a fight between gods. And Louis, who predicted the fairy fight, does not know where he is yet. Black Widow didn't even expect Louis to show up. In such a battle, it would be difficult for Louis to enter the battlefield even if he wore fuzzies. Two monsters of the same origin, even if they fight, they are punching to the flesh. The loathsome bone spur pierced the Green Titan's chest. But the Green Titan who lost his mind directly broke the bones of hatred. Roar! Roar! Both monsters roared. Pain. Not reconciled. Anger. Irritable. Never die. Everyone wants to kill the other. The scene was too brutal, and the streets were completely destroyed. The powerful force is shocking to see. General Ross arranged for support from the sky with aircraft. But seeing such a powerful and uncontrollable abomination, although he followed his initial order, the attacker Green Titan. But the appearance of losing his human mind made General Ross startled. Hate, absolutely cannot stay. It would be fine if it and the Green Titan were destroyed together, otherwise, if you do it yourself, you will destroy both of them. The Green Titan became more and more painful and angry because of the injury he suffered. Power is in the midst of wireless augmentation. In order to observe the battle between the two monsters, Black Widow was relatively close, and suffered the aftermath of the battle immediately. The body was hit by the energy wave of the battle and flew backwards. It was about to fall into a pile of broken reinforced concrete. In the dark, the energy pipes flow red blood energy, and the bright yellow compound eyes are particularly obvious at night. Phase. Louis Stark. General Ross could never dream of forgetting the armor, and the man beneath it. But thinking of the power of the Green Titan and the abomination, General Ross sneered. He admits that Louis is very powerful with the armor on. But facing the Green Titan and the Abomination at the same time, even Louis would definitely die. Black Widow had already accepted facing death. But suddenly, the appearance of Fuzzies made her feel that she could still be rescued. Louis! Black Widow yelled. Sorry, there was a small error in the research, am I late? Louis asked. Look towards the center of the battlefield. The Abomination and the Green Titan didn't realize their arrival at all, and they were fighting on their own. Or realize it, but the life and death struggle between the two guys will never stop. Louis felt the power flowing in his body, felt the power of Fuzzies almost doubled. I haven't figured out who should be used for the surgery. Since they are all there, let's do it together. Before Louis finished speaking, his body had already reached the center of the battlefield. Without giving the others room to react, Louis was already there. Ha! Ha! Louis shouted. One punch knocked back the Green Titan, and one kick knocked down the Abomination. Bang bang bang! The two big guys of 2 or 3 meters were forcibly separated by Louis. This guy, his strength has become stronger again. General Ross' face became extremely ugly. This is something he didn't expect. Louis actually became powerful again in a short period of time. Even if he faced the Green Titan and the Abomination at the same time, he still had the strength to spare. No, not right. It's just that the strength has increased, and it's not enough to fight two monsters at the same time. General Ross comforted himself. As he thought, Louis' strength had increased, but when dealing with the Abomination and the Green Titan, the effect was still mediocre. The two big guys stood up quickly. Locked the enemy on Fuzzies. Roaring towards Fuzzies. Qingming Reading Ceremony. Chapter 54. Black Widow watched nervously as Fuzzies faced the attack of two monsters. I chose a relatively far location so as not to trouble Louis. Louis felt his blood rushing. Irritable. Metamorphosis. Evolution. Louis didn't even think that such a change would happen to him. Originally, he planned to use gamma rays to irradiate himself, and then cooperate with the analysis of 3 special bloods to complete his evolution. But even Louis didn't expect that he had completed a special evolutionary journey. Different from the evolutionary route of the Titan form. Louis originally didn't become a Titan's ability, but the power he displayed was not weak at all. What's more, such a recovery ability actually let him inherit it. Louis woke up from a coma, and immediately came to the center of the battlefield. The blood energy in the body drives Fuzzies perfectly, which is not inferior to the photon blood, and even exceeds the energy of the photon blood. At least the photon blood will not bring Orphe Enoch's powerful recovery ability. Let's use you to test the form. Louis was full of fighting spirit. At this moment, he felt that his blood was crying for battle. Louis set his target on the Green Titan. It's not against him, it's just that he doesn't need to fight against the Abomination. The power of hatred consumes his life all the time. This is a wrong evolutionary path. Accelerate. XL form. The armor on Fuzzies' chest was turned upside down, exposing the core matrix on his chest. Because of the surging energy of Louis' blood on his body, a surrounding rising energy flow was generated. The blood in the energy pipe turned into silver, and the black armor and the silver photon blood pipe formed a strong sense of impact. The rest of his body instantly spread out, creating a small whirlwind. This guy can actually become stronger. General Ross couldn't believe his eyes. But the aura displayed by Louis was even stronger. General Ross even wondered, if Louis had used this form in the first place, would he have no ability to resist and would be killed directly? For a moment, General Ross felt that S.H.I.E.L.D's invitation really came slowly with sincerity. Others don't know, but as long as there is Louis, such a powerful strength is enough to crush the audience. The irrational Green Titan only knows to move forward, anger makes it fearless. Fuzzies exerted his legs, and at this moment, his body reached the speed of Mach level. Such a movement speed cannot be recognized by the human naked eye. The forehead of the cave can only be seen for a moment, and it appears in front of the Green Titan in the next second. Punch. Knock. The Green Titan's huge body was like a child, and was beaten back and forth by Louis in the sky. No matter where he was beaten, Fuzzies' demonic figure would appear in the next second. Same attack, same speed. The only one who can clearly see this kind of battle is General Ross, who still has the Abomination. People like Black Widow can only hear a series of bang bang bang. The impact is full. The Green Titan couldn't react in the sky, so he was beaten dizzy by punch after punch. Puff. Spit out a tooth. Puff. Another mouthful of blood. Even the mighty one who can restore ability can't handle Lewis's endless output. Click. Arm dislocated. Gala. The bones are broken. With the rise of Lewis' fight, every move is deadly, and they are all going all out. The time far exceeds the 10-second limit of Fuzzy's accelerated form in the original show. But Lewis also felt that his heart was under increasing pressure, and the heart was beating faster and faster because of the overload. Final blow. Louis shouted. With a full blow, the Green Titan flew into the sky, almost only a small black dot could be seen. Release. Lewis said coldly. It fell back to the ground, smashing the ground into a depression. Hoo-hoo, Lewis panted, this kind of battle really made him feel a little tired. But the duration of such an accelerated state is enough to prove how powerful the new evolutionary blood is. Hey? Why haven't you come down yet? Lewis looked at the sky. In the eyes of everyone, Lewis looked at the falling objects in the sky with extreme disdain. A large group of green objects hit the earth in an extremely strange posture. Boom! Among the huge amounts of smoke and dust, the Green Titan was dying. Finally it fell. I can keep my hand, it seems that next time I have to be gentler. Lewis said easily. The accelerated form displayed by Fuzz is too powerful. However, the requirements for one's own physical fitness are also abnormal. Lewis felt that his body was very strong, but he couldn't hold on for too long. Everyone heard Lewis sigh. There is nothing but fear in my heart. Are you FG human? This kind of cruel killing is actually called keeping one's hand? And, what the hell do you want next time? General Ross has already included Lewis in the category of not being able to be provoked. Lewis' strength is too terrifying. Unreasonably strong. The same is true for Black Widow, except that Black Widow saw the strength that Lewis showed when he was fighting, and the disdain that he showed inadvertently. It made Black Widow feel that his judgment of Lewis was not wrong. In Lewis' character, the hidden ambition is extremely huge. Putting away the accelerated form, Fuzz returned to the normal red state, and the blood energy tube also returned to the red blood. Snapped. Lewis snapped his fingers, pointing with one finger at the abomination that had lost its target before. Next, it's your turn. Chapter 55. At the moment Fuzz is no longer in the domineering silver-black state before. But the sense of oppression brought to the hatred is not weak at all. Tread. Tread. Heavy footsteps sounded, and the abomination retreated. In the face of Fuzz, even the irrational abhorrence backed away, feeling scared. How is this possible? No retreat, no retreat. General Ross' voice trembled. Such a result was not what he wanted to see. It was supposed to be a scene where the abomination and the Green Titan would lose each other. Why is this so? It's all about the armor, it's all about Lewis. General Ross was furious, but cold and fearful. Even hating such a monster, did you feel the fear of facing Lewis? The power to destroy everything. The abomination took a few steps back, seeing that Fuzz didn't catch up, he immediately turned around and ran away. Bang bang bang. Huge amounts of power, humming the ground stomping. Let you run for 10 seconds first. Lewis said with a smile, starting the countdown to death. 10. 9. 8. The hatred felt the threat from behind, and it didn't decrease because of the distance he ran. On the contrary, it was even more terrifying. Keep running away from that scary creature. This was the only thought left in Hate's mind. Escape from Fuzz. The bright yellow compound eyes fixed on the direction where the hatred was escaping, and despite the physical exertion, the speed of the hatred reached 100 meters per second. But that wasn't enough for Louis at all. 3. 2. The countdown to death still rings in Hate's ears. 1. Louis whispered devilishly, appearing in the ear of the abomination. Fuzz's figure also appeared behind the abomination. The opening and closing of the space barrier was completed almost instantly. But in the eyes of everyone, Lewis came to the side of the abomination in an instant. End your sinful life. Lewis said coldly. Fuzz completed the installation of Fuzz's pointer at this moment. Red's blood energy poured into his right leg. Seeing this familiar scene, General Ross turned pale. I was instantly killed by this move, and fell into a coma. The deep red drill locked on the body of the abomination, even the power of the abomination could hardly break through the blockade of space. Roar! The helpless hatred can only growl loudly. Crimson drill. Fuzzy's body slanted through the abomination's body from the air, destroying the abomination's internal organs. A powerful force exploded in the body of the abomination. In the end, it turned into a capital Phi symbol, engraved in the space. Boom! Boom! A series of explosions were accompanied by the abominable flesh and blood raining down. Slap! Slap! Damn it, it's disgusting and disgusting. Louis's scalp was numb, and he directly opened the space barrier, leaving the range of the blood rain. The eroding and tyrannical hateful flesh and blood fell to the ground, wriggling slowly. The vitality of this thing is too strong. Louis sighed. Whether it's a red titan, a green titan, or an abomination, the most obvious feature is its tenacious vitality. As long as it is not killed all at once, it will be resurrected like Xiaoqiang and continue to fight. It's better to exterminate such a disgusting creature as soon as possible. Louis said to himself. The body emits white light and disarms Fuzz, but the next second. G3X, Henshin. Louis let G3X also enjoy the privilege of shouting slogans. After completing the automatic arming of Fuzz, Louis also modified the G3X. Although the G3X is not needed for combat, the weapon system of the G3X is very convenient for dealing with funeral affairs. Cerberus is equipped on the Scorpius. Vulcan mode, on. Aiming at the remaining flesh and blood of the abomination, it was a small rocket GX bullet. Boom! The sound of the explosion was accompanied by flames, constantly burning the hateful flesh and blood, and it seemed that one could smell the burnt smell of flesh and blood. Zalazala. After confirming that there was no life, Louis disarmed G3X. In the arena, everyone was silent. Even the sound of breathing was suppressed to the minimum. What's the matter? Don't talk, are you dumb? Louis said with a smile. Thank you Mr. Louis for eliminating monsters for us. General Ross felt like his heart was bleeding when he said this. I wanted to catch the Green Titan, but I didn't expect Louis to be killed directly. You don't need to thank you. Do you want to think about what I said before? Louis is smiling. With a kind face. The tone is gentle, but the language is threatening. General Ross replied immediately, please tell Director Nick Fury, I promise. Fine, then I'll go back and notify Director Nick Fury. Louis nodded in satisfaction, it seems that this General Ross is still very good. It was the first time I did a task, so I successfully completed it. Louis was in a good mood. Louis' figure disappeared in the lingering smoke after the explosion, and Louis also conveniently put away the body of Dr. Banner who had turned into a human. Still breathing, Dr. Banner's injuries had recovered a bit during the short time Louis had dealt with the abomination. Black Widow was already stunned, the recorder in his hand was taken away by Louis, and he suddenly realized it. He wanted to snatch it back, but was dodged by Louis. Give it back to me. Black Widow said, but his tone was obviously a little scared. The power Louis displayed was too powerful and terrifying. If the enemy... Black Widow didn't dare to imagine it, and could only say that luckily Louis was not an enemy. Louis opened the video record, and commented a few words while watching it. No, you're taking too ugly a picture of me, and I'm not handsome at all. Louis complained with some regret. Black Widow's video recording technology is obviously too bad. Do you want to mention to Fury that Black Widow should go for photography training? When I video record myself in the future, I can take a more handsome picture. Chapter 56. Black Widow stared at Louis' movements. If he couldn't beat it again and again, he could only rely on his eyes to mark it, for fear that Louis would delete something. But Louis wasn't interested in deleting those records. None of Fuzz's strongest form is shown, if anyone believes what's on the tape. Then, get ready to die. Louis checked the video records, but he was just looking at how long he had been in the accelerated state. In the original play, it is 35 seconds to maintain the accelerated state normally, and 10 seconds to enter the accelerated state. However, relying on his evolved physical fitness, Louis persisted in the accelerated state for 23 seconds, and even had some energy left. It seems that by constantly improving his physical fitness, Fuzz's accelerated state can be made more durable. Louis really liked the thrill of crushing everything. Louis throws the recorder back to Black Widow. I saw Black Widow carefully stuffing the recorder into the ditch in his chest. Alas, the damned woman is exuding her charms again. When are you going to go back? Louis asked. Since the task has been completed, definitely go back immediately. Black Widow replied. She never thought that Louis would complete the task in such an outrageous and violent way. Seeing General Ross's expression of reluctance and helplessness, Black Widow felt that there would be a lot of trouble in the future. Then I won't go back, I still have something to do. Louis stretched his waist, a little casually. No, you have to go with me, God knows what you're going to do outside. Black Widow had seen through Louis. As long as Louis is left outside, God knows what trouble it will cause. Louis' destructive power. Black Widow felt that he could wipe out a child. Hey, when I joined S.H.I.E.L.D. Fury never said that he would restrict my actions. Louis said dissatisfied. But now there is. Black Widow did his part. Women are really troublesome. Louis complained dissatisfiedly. At this moment, the widow's breasts are not interesting at all. Seeing that Louis didn't continue to propose to act alone, Black Widow contacted Fury with a communicator. But the explosion-like sound of Fury on the other end was heard immediately. Natasha Romanoff, where's Louis, where the hell is this BD now? Fury was going crazy right now. If he was not worried that contacting Black Widow in advance would affect the progress of the mission, he would have wanted to scold Louis a long time ago. Louis the BD, he is by my side now. Black Widow looked at Louis indifferently. Originally, I wondered why Louis was going to act alone. Now it looks like Louis did something to make Fury go crazy again. Louis, you are so weak, you didn't tell me that there will be so many enemies? Did you already know that Hydra is going to attack Tesseract? Fury's heart bleeds at the thought of the casualty report. Louis just told Fury in advance that someone was going to do something to Tesseract and asked Fury to arrange someone to guard it. Fury also sent the elite of S.H.I.E.L.D, but he did not expect to face Hydra. If he had known earlier that he was going to fight Hydra, Fury would have at least doubled the number of people he arranged. As a result, the manpower arranged by Fury was wiped out. A large amount of casualty pension made the already poor S.H.I.E.L.D even worse. Louis sighed, a little helpless. Can he say, it's all for Fury? Even if he said it, Fury wouldn't believe it. But S.H.I.E.L.D can almost change its name to Hydra, let alone double, you are super double. 17 cards, whether to be seconded or to be seconded. Forget it, Louis is a generous person, so let me take the blame. I can just eat Tesseract without anyone noticing. Tesseract wasn't taken away. Louis asked kindly. The Hydra members detonated the bomb in the end, the mansion was completely destroyed, and the Tesseract was probably taken away. Fury said helplessly after venting his anger. Unexpectedly, Tesseract went around and went back to Hydra. God knows what kind of terrible weapons those lunatics will use Tesseract to research. That's good. Louis breathed a sigh of relief, believing that Hydra would love the Tesseract he made. The real Tesseract has long been included in the space by Louis using Tesseract's affinity for himself. As for the one in the basement, it's just a Zip-A product that Louis injected with the power of space. What did you say? Fury wondered for a moment that he had misheard. I said, that's really too bad. Louis laughed, and changed the topic to compensation. Director Nick Fury, should S.H.I.E.L.D pay compensation for the damage to my home? After all, your own home can't be destroyed for nothing, you have to find someone who loses money. Do I, Louis Stark, seem like the type to trade at a loss? Tesseract, I want it. Money, you also have to pay me. I, Louis Stark, pay money. That seaside house is not expensive, only a few $100 million. Beep beep. On the other end of the communicator, Fury hung up the phone in seconds. Compensation? Just dream. S.H.I.E.L.D is so poor that he almost has no underwear. Play money? FK your sister FK. Fury felt that he should blacklist Louis. Louis returned the communicator to Black Widow, with a disappointed and sad expression on his face. Today is another sunny day with good news one after another. No, 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 you can't laugh, you have to hold back, you have to look sad. Black Widow looked at Louis' poor acting skills. She really didn't want to take Louis back now. What a troublemaker. Qingming Reading Ceremony. Chapter 57. Once back in New York, Louis was extremely excited as if he had returned to his home field. After his physical fitness was strengthened, the adaptability of the power of space became stronger. Now Louis, the coverage of the power of space is 10,000 meters. Within 10,000 meters, come and go freely. Where are we going now? Trickerv headquarters. After Louis got off the plane, he was dragged into the car by Black Widow. The driver is Hawkeye. This is really rare, and I am lucky enough to have two future heroes of the Avengers Alliance as companions. However, these indirectly proved that there are basically not many usable people under Fury. It seems that Fury is also very clear that S.H.I.E.L.D. is deeply infiltrated by people. The Trickerv headquarters is located in Washington, D.C. The scale is as luxurious as the Pentagon. Director Nick Fury is waiting for you in the office. Hawkeye said in a deep voice, with no intention of following. What about you? Black Widow asked curiously. There is an urgent mission to go out. Hawkeye said. Black Widow no longer asked, since it is a task, it involves confidentiality. Louis and Black Widow got into the elevator, and when the elevator doors closed, Louis gave Hawkeye a meaningful look. Under the cover of Louis' power of space, Hawkeye came out of the Trickerv wing building. Ding! The sound of the elevator arriving disrupted Louis' thinking. Louis glanced at the elevator floor. 27th floor. Fury waited for Louis' arrival with a grim look on his face. He has held back his anger for a long time, and needs to find someone to vent it to. Louis. Fury's voice filled with anger. Fury, my family is gone. How are you going to pay the compensation? I'll charge interest after it's been delayed for a long time. Louis didn't rush, and opened his mouth with a crit. You're dreaming, you lost the Tesseract, and you want me to pay compensation. Fury was furious. Louis is calling for a thief. How could it be that I lost it? It's obvious that you didn't supervise well. Louis put the responsibility completely aside. Mommy fuck, it's obviously your intelligence error. That villa is 563 million. In short, you have to pay full responsibility. The 563 million will be credited to the account first. Can you not mention the money? Are you still short of money in Stark Industries? No matter how small a mosquito is, it's still meat. Have you seen the 563 million yuan? Even if I donate all of it, you have to pay it back. Louis did his part, grasping a handle and never letting go. Fury felt that his head was getting bigger, a good braised egg head, and now it was almost swollen. Louis couldn't let go of this, and even Fury couldn't say anything. But the Tesseract, that thing was a gem, and now it's gone. Black Widow also had a headache when he saw the two people competing with each other. How did director Nick Fury lose his mind after meeting Louis? Sure enough, Louis's ability to irritate people is getting stronger day by day. I think, let's finish the task first, okay? I can go to other things, and then you continue to quarrel. Black Widow said coldly. Couldn't stand Louis arguing with director Nick Fury's kid. After being warned by Black Widow, Fury immediately acted as a qualified expression manager, and a serious aura spread out. How about this mission? Fury looked at Louis. Louis also put away his childish expression and acted businesslike. It has been successfully completed. General Ross has agreed to join, but there was a small accident in the middle. A monster came out to disrupt the situation. I can only solve it. As for Dr. Banner, I'm sorry, in order not to let him interfere with the battle, I seem to be a little heavier. Louis openly admitted his mistake. The face is very sincere, without the slightest falsehood. Fury nodded. Black Widow had explained the general situation in advance on the phone. Watched the battle video submitted by Black Widow. Fury couldn't help but be startled by the combat effectiveness of Louis' armor. This is a powerful force that can crush Green Titans and abominations. Louis, I would like to invite you to join the organization I am going to establish. I will name it, Avengers. I wonder if you would like it? Fury asked in a deep voice. He actually thought about this for a long time. But because of Lui's character and the lack of comprehensive information, he was not invited. Just put Louis in S.H.I.E.L.D. first. In Fury's opinion, Tony is a better fit for the Avengers than Louis. At least, Tony is not as mysterious as Louis. The first impression of Louis is mysterious. It looks simple and easy to understand, but after watching it for a long time, you will feel that all the appearances that Louis shows are just the appearances he wants to be seen. Louis glanced at Fury and asked curiously, Avengers? Who are you going to take revenge on? It's just a name. But shouldn't the name have its own meaning? Or did you choose it randomly? I dare not add such a random name. Why do you talk so much nonsense? It's just a sentence to add or not. Louis's mouth broke and Fury's anger was stirred again. Without thinking about it, Louis said firmly, Avengers? Sorry, I refuse. Qingming Reading Ceremony. Chapter 58. Louis' answer was unexpected, but it was expected. He never seemed like a man bound by an organization, and he joined S.H.I.E.L.D simply because he wanted to get Tesseract. If it wasn't for not wanting to turn his face so early, Louis would be ready to retire from S.H.I.E.L.D now. Hearing Louis' decisive refusal, Fury was silent, and Black Widow was also stunned. If there is nothing else, I will leave first. Tony is still waiting for me to go back to the dinner. Louis' expression was very calm, and he was not at all disturbed by his rejection of the Avengers Alliance. Seeing that Fury didn't speak, Louis waved his hand as if to say goodbye. Watching Louis close the door and disappear from sight, Fury slammed his fist on the desk. To show the anger in his heart right now, Black Widow can only sigh. To be honest, Black Widow really doesn't want to be an enemy of Louis these days. The strength shown by Louis is shocking. It was hard for her to imagine the scene after Louis became an enemy. Hope he doesn't become our enemy. Black Widow sighed. He's a smart guy, Fury said in a deep voice. It was very calm on the surface, but no one knew what was going on in Fury's mind. Leaving the Trickerved Wing building, Louis whistled and walked unceremoniously on the road. Find a public phone booth and use the space barrier. Hawkeye had long since disappeared from Louis' perception, so Louis moved towards the position he expected. Finally, Hawkeye was spotted near Dulles International Airport. When it was confirmed that the destination of the plane Hawkeye boarded was Mexico, Louis' usual smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Louis used the Tesseract to perform a long-distance space jump. Jumped from Washington to New York and back to the Stark building. Tony moved the lab here. Ethan has returned from his travels a long time ago. Although I don't know if Louis did it on purpose, Ethan avoided a crisis. This made Ethan more convinced of Louis. Think Louis is definitely an angel sent by God to save himself. Oh no, Louis, he is God. The Tesseract was taken away. This is the first sentence Tony said when he saw Louis. He was deeply sorry for this. The Tesseract belonged to Louis, but he didn't take good care of it. Tony felt a little uncomfortable because he didn't protect Louis' things. If possible, I will take out the shares of Stark Industries as compensation. Although it may not be possible to return Tesseract. Tony knows the value of Tesseract very well, and it is difficult to exchange it for any amount of money. Seeing that Tony was so honest, Louis was very embarrassed to accept the shares of Stark Industries that Tony gave him. Is this a surprise? Louis looked at the Tesseract lying in the space, and nodded silently. He is really a little clever ghost. Seeing that Louis accepted his compensation, Tony also breathed a sigh of relief. What worries him most is that Louis won't forgive himself. After a hasty meal, Louis rushed to his laboratory. Mr. Tony, I have almost completed the task you gave me. Ethan pointed to the armor modules of the 4 Kamen Rider armors constructed in the virtual space. Although with the help of J.A.R.V.I.S, Ethan's speed still surprised Louis. You know, Fuzz is the armor with the weakest basic data among the 5 Kamen Riders. If the rest of the armor is completed, Louis has a combination for many battles. It's done well, let's start research and development. Louis' eyes were full of raging flames. I can finally own all the armors of a series. Without considering mass production, comics, and stage plays, Mr. Louis, which ones should we build first? Ethan was also very excited. As Ethan, who built the overall model, had a lot of affection for these 4 pieces of armor. Now that it can finally be built, it is naturally impatient. At the same time, Louis said in a cold voice with ambition in his eyes. Could it be 2? Ethan wanted to say that he couldn't become a fat man with 1 bite. But seeing Louis' serious and determined expression, Ethan had no choice but to risk his life to accompany the gentleman. By the way, a new friend will join in a few days. Louis remembered Banner, who was lying in the space and recovering. Although he hasn't woken up yet, Banner's vital signs are getting stronger and stronger. The sun shone into the ward. Banner felt that every cell in his body was greedily absorbing the fresh air from the window. Where am I? Banner looked at his hands, returning to normal. Before losing memory, it was encirclement and suppression, it was battle. Have you failed yourself? Have you been arrested? Banner shook his head. He didn't know anything about what happened after the transformation. This made him a little irritable. It seems that you responded well. After learning that Banner had woken up, Louis immediately rushed over through the space barrier. Are you Mr. Louis? Banner hadn't forgotten the man who knew his identity. You saved me. It's obvious. What do you want me to do? Cooperate with you in researching my transformation. As I said, I will teach you how to use your ability. As for what you are going to do, for the time being, you only need your help in developing my armor. Louis said with a smile. Armor? Banner looked confused. Let me take you to my laboratory and introduce you to your future work partner by the way. Louis took Banner to the laboratory in the Stark building. Ethan had heard that a newcomer was coming today, so he deliberately made himself look less messy. And the moment he saw Banner, Ethan was dumbfounded. You are Dr. Bruce Banner. Dr. Ethan, you're actually here. Banner didn't expect to see Ethan here either. Both of them are experts in physics, so it is not surprising that they know each other. Seeing that Ethan was here, Banner's vigilance lowered a bit. Look at our research, these are the armors we're developing, this one is Kaiza, this one is Delta, and this one. Ethan proudly introduced the provisional research results to Banner. You came here just to let me join the research. Dr. Banner was used to fleeing, and he was wary of anyone. Louis is so aimless, Banner is not used to it. That's all for the time being. How about it? Would you like to stay? In Stark Industries, as long as I'm here, no one can take you away. Louis smiled and invited. I'm willing to help you, Mr. Louis. Banner immediately agreed. He was fed up with life on the run. Very well, welcome to join, Dr. Banner. Louis gave Banner a hug. Qingming Reading Ceremony. Chapter 59. With the addition of Banner, the laboratory has started a full-scale research and development model, and the daily calculation volume of J.A.R.V.I.S is being carried out in units of megabytes. Every data processing of the armor is calculated by JARVIS balance, strength. All three of them started the research and development of the armor with all their might. Tony also began to conduct in-depth research on the Mark series. When facing Hydra's enemies, Tony realized that the Mark III had no advantage in many places. This is unacceptable to him. Especially in the face of Hydra's powerlessness, it made Tony even more wary. Research never stops. The enemies you have to face are very powerful. Tony felt a sense of crisis more and more, and wanted to make the Mark series stronger. And in far southern New Mexico, a hammer that fell from the sky broke the long-term peace of the town. Hawkeye was sent here by Fury and began to guard and inspect. S.H.I.E.L.D established a temporary research facility here, and began to study and analyze the structure of Mjolnir. After losing the Tesseract, Fury valued the hammer that flew from the sky. Hopefully, you can find a value that is not weaker than Tesseract. Louis has not received any mission instructions from Fury during this time. Thinking about it, Fury is also on guard against Louis' betrayal at any time. However, Louis could not think so much. The development of other Kamen Rider armors in the 555 series is a big problem. Although there is one more Dr. Banner. But in the same way, there is one more person's opinion. Every day in the laboratory, only 3 people can be heard arguing and discussing. Banner, why is the energy channel designed like this? It's unreasonable, and it will waste a lot of energy. Ethan, the structure of the legs still needs to be adjusted. If a pointer device is added here, it will destroy the sense of balance. J.A.R.V.I.S, can you recalculate it? Louis, you can consider movable devices to adjust anytime and anywhere. These are just appetizers. Louis is even considering whether to remake Fuzzy's, but considering that he does not have suitable combat armor at hand, Fuzzy's upgrade needs to be delayed a little bit. Louis set his next target on Mjolnir in southern New Mexico. But according to the plot, it's still very early. Louis had enough time to upgrade his Fuzzies and build other armors of the 555 series. After researching a reasonable and flexible leg pointer, other equipment is built according to this idea. The Kaiza armor entered a high-speed development period, and it took only 3 days to successfully complete the armor. The only bad thing is the installation test. The overall appearance of the armor of the new Kaiza is more comfortable and reasonable than that of Fuzzies. The weight matching and adjustment of each place are precisely calculated by JARVIS. In terms of strength and power, it will definitely not be weaker than the original version, or even stronger. The power that Louis can exert will also become stronger. After the Kaiza armor was completed, Louis immediately chose to upgrade Fuzz. As Louis's favorite set of armor, there is an opportunity to upgrade, how could he not take advantage of it? It's just that when Banner saw Fuzz, the memory deep in his heart suddenly emerged. It was this suit of armor that beat him. Banner couldn't control his emotions for a moment. Louis can only take the Kaiza armor through the space barrier to take away the Green Titan after Banner's transformation. Ethan read the New Testament silently. Louis' ability is simply God. As for what happened, Ethan didn't know. But when Louis came back, he said excitedly that Kaiza's actual installation test effect is very good, and its power is even stronger than Fuzz. As for Dr. Banner, according to Mr. Louis, it seems that there was a small accident, and Dr. Banner needs to rest in the hospital for a few days. This is dedicating oneself to scientific research. In Ethan's eyes, Banner's figure suddenly became taller. As for Louis, he said silently, it's really cool to beat Green Titan with Kaiza. Dr. Banner was brought back by Louis. In addition to helping with research and development, he also had another role as a tester for the new armor. Is there a rougher and thicker offensive tank in this world than the Green Titan? The point is, after the fight, the ontology still doesn't remember. Simply perfect. Banner's miserable second half of his life seemed to be silently finalized under Louis' abduction. Fuzz easily irritated Banner, and Louis simply handed it over to Ethan for upgrade. On the other hand, Tony's Mark series has begun to enter the MARK4 test. This time, the MARK4 feels more aggressive, whether it is the angular outer armor or the multi-layered sheet joints. All showed a strong offensive. After Tony was attacked by Hydra this time, the first thing Tony considered was the combatability of the Mark series. Tony, this suit looks very aggressive. Louis praised. Even he had to admire Tony's sense of design and his sensitivity to armor. Naturally, I will never allow anyone to destroy my villa again. Tony was still brooding. In my heart, I have been with Hydra forever, which is the result of fate. After it's finished, do you want to play a game? My Kaiza is also finished. Louis was very interested in torturing Tony again. Although the current Mark IV, there is no way to bring Louis the thrill of defeating a strong enemy. But who said that abuse of vegetables is not happy? I can't help it during this period. Mark IV is still in the testing stage, and I will go to a racing competition after a while. Do you want to see your brother and me? Tony invited. Needless to say, Tony's spare time is definitely more colorful than Louis's. A car race. Louis seemed to recall such a plot. Still, Mjolnir awaits Louis, where it matters more. Louis refused, I have to go out for a while, and there may be no other way. That's a pity. Tony smiled and didn't mention it again. Qingming Reading Ceremony. Chapter 60. Oh, by the way, Tony, have you felt any discomfort recently? Louis looked at Tony. Tony is still using the arc reactor of the palladium element. For convenience, it has been modified into a plug-in reactor. And the palladium element is made into a sheet similar to chocolate file size. Without the tesseract to ablate the palladium poisoning, Tony should be starting to feel unwell by now. Seeing Louis' expression, Tony touched his chest subconsciously. Tony had only recently discovered about palladium poisoning. But in order not to worry Louis, Tony kept silent. Unexpectedly, Louis still saw it. Tony smiled helplessly, but the next moment immediately reflected, looking straight at Tony with his eyes, he said, Louis, you are also using arc reactor, isn't it your body? I'm fine. I've started using the new reactor a long time ago. I remember I asked Ethan to give you a gift, which is a new type of reactor. Don't you know? Gift. Tony thought about it carefully, and said apologetically, I put it together with the gifts from other people, and I haven't had time to open it yet. Louis rolled his eyes, he shouldn't have given Tony the reactor as a gift. Really blind. Hearing Louis' reminder, Tony immediately dug out the gift Tony gave him. This is a reactor similar in shape to a palladium element reactor. But the moment he touched the reactor, Tony felt the palladium in his body begin to fade. Is this an illusion? Tony figured his brain must be overtired and delusional. This is a new element adopted. Tony looked at the elemental synthesis equation displayed by Louis. This is an element that does not exist on the periodic table. When he saw it for the first time, Tony felt that this element could definitely replace palladium. How did you discover this element? It was dug out from Dad's relic notes. He Tony, you might be able to look at those things. Louis mercilessly copied the words Fury used to lie to Tony. Fury should never try to trick Tony into the Avengers Alliance with words like that again. Tony didn't answer, trying to get him to accept that Howard Stark was a good father in a short time, which was a bit difficult. Louis didn't speak, he knew that it might be difficult for Tony to accept this fact for a while. However, slowly you will understand Howard Stark's good intentions. As for Louis, the so-called cheap daddy is cheap daddy. After Louis finds time gem in the future, it is already very polite not to trouble this cheap daddy. He is worthy of the soul of abandoning his wife and son? Leave Tony to think for himself. Louis and Ethan begin to upgrade phase. The 555 series now has a mature technical system. The progress of the other 3 sets of armor is also very fast. Dr. Banner recovered in just 1 day and was discharged from the hospital. Louis feels that Banner's self-recovery ability has improved again, and it seems that the injury can also accelerate the evolution of Banner's constitution. It seems that we can be more ruthless in the future, everything is for the good of Banner, Louis thought so. Ethan really believed Louis's nonsense that Banner was slightly injured. If it wasn't for the hospital or Stark Industries funded the construction, with Banner's recovery speed, sooner or later he would be dragged out for slicing. When Banner saw Louis, he smiled honestly. This guy really forgot who beat him. But after he transformed, Mr. Louis must have helped him. Thank you, Mr. Louis, Dr. Banner thanked. No matter how thick-skinned Louis was, he was a little embarrassed to face this kind of plot where the victim thanked the perpetrator. Where is it? I will continue to work hard next time. Louis simply drifted away on the road of being inappropriate. Banner went home and accelerated the research and development process. Looking at the remaining 3 pieces of armor that have been developed, Louis nodded in satisfaction. The 555 series has been successfully completed, even the belt and the mobile phone have been modified. Louis integrated the 5 belts and transforming devices together, and each piece of armor was identified with its own logo. As long as you confirm the corresponding logo, you can transform into the corresponding armor. Phase, Phi. Kaiza, Kai. Delta, Delta. Siga, Psi. Orga, Omega. Louis stored 5 sets of armor in this series of belts. In a short time, there will be no more research and development work, and I need to go out for a while. Louis said to his 2 employees. Where are you going? Do you need to use armor to fight? Banner asked immediately. It should be used, the opponent will be very strong. Louis nodded. Please be sure to record the combat data of the armor. Banner now pours all his enthusiasm into armor. Here, Banner is living well and living up to his worth in the armor. Louis looked at Ethan, obviously Ethan had the same attitude. Well, these 2 guys don't care about the safety of the boss, but the armor data. Louis was itchy with anger. Banner, pay attention to controlling your emotions. Louis reminded. If he wasn't there, there seemed to be no guy who could stop the Green Titan Hulk. Tony isn't building anti-Hulk armor for Hulk right now. As for the Mark IV, the Green Titan Hulk may be able to perform a bare-handed dismantling of the Mark IV. Banner nodded. During this time, Banner's mood has been stable. Except for the time when I saw Phase, at other times, I maintained a normal state. As long as it's not the kind of life that hides and hides, Banner feels that he can stay away from the state after transformation for the rest of his life. Louis wanted to say goodbye to Tony, but Tony's lab said no disturbing. J.A.R.V.I.S. After Tony comes out, tell him for me that I'm going out for a while, the time is uncertain. By the way, tell Tony that you must not believe the words of some corned egghead. Louis was really afraid that Tony would be abducted into the Avengers Alliance by Fury while he was away. Okay, Mr. Louis, J.A.R.V.I.S. will pass it on to Mr. Tony. Louis nodded, opened the space barrier contentedly, and left in a jump. Next stop, New Mexico, a small southern town. Qingming Reading Ceremony. Chapter 61. Louis stepped into a small southern town in New Mexico. In the scope of the power of space, the most active one is the Mjolnir. Louis could almost feel the divine power of Thor, which was comparable to the power of space, and it really was a good thing. The figures of Hawkeye and Phil Coulson are also within the range of Louis' perception. It seems that this time, Fury has paid for it. The few available agents and agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. were all dispatched here. In the temporary research base, countless researchers come and go, busy. They are analyzing and studying the inscriptions on Mjolnir, as well as textures. But nothing. This is the treasure of Asgard, a combination of divine power and divine gold. How can it be that the current research machines of human beings can explore the essence? Louis looked around and finally found his target. In the night. Thor looked around blankly. It looked like a deserted country. A man and a woman are looking at him with eyes like looking at a fool. You, which kingdom is this? Elfheim? Nornheim? Thor desperately wants to know where he is now. He has lost his divine power and is now very weak. New Mexico. Jane Foster felt that her day today was really bad, and she originally wanted to take advantage of the night to inquire about the falling objects in this small town. Did not expect to meet a fool. Elfheim? Nornheim? What are these places? Jane Foster aimed a stun gun at Thor. To deal with the lunatic, it would be better to let him sleep. You, how dare you threaten me with such a weak weapon? Thor. Thor said angrily. Snapped. Jane Foster flipped the switch. Sizzle. The strong anesthesia electric current flows through Thor's body, paralyzing every place he passes by. Louis was in the dark, laughing like crazy. As a joke, Thor was paralyzed by the electric current of the stun gun. Hey! Jane Foster let out a long sigh of relief. Da-da-da! The footsteps coming from behind made Jane Foster nervous again. Jane Foster subconsciously pressed the button of the stun gun backwards. Louis lightly used the power of space to transfer the electric current to Thor's body again. Sizzle. Thor's body trembled for a while, and he continued to be in a coma. It's not good to use such a dangerous weapon when we first meet. Louis smiled. The power of space imprisoned Jane Foster and her colleagues. Snapped. Louis snapped his fingers. When Jane Foster came back to her senses, she realized that her stun gun had appeared in the hands of the man in front of her at some point. Cynical face, always with a lazy smile. Manufactured by Stark Industries? My family has built such gadgets. Louis shook his head. He didn't know much about Stark Industries projects. Who are you? Why are you here? Louis asked back. Could it be that you want to enter that temporary research base to find something? Seemingly being targeted, Jane Foster didn't speak, but just snorted coldly. I'll take them away, I wish you good luck. Looking at Thor, who fainted, this saved Louis the trouble. Louis also wanted to see what kind of creature the so-called god was. That's not okay, who knows if you know this guy? Jane Foster immediately rushed over to block Thor. Although Thor is a fool, the threat from Louis is not low at all. God knows if these two know each other. After all, he was the one who was stunned to the end. Jane Foster felt that she had to be responsible. Stop anyone from taking him, at least until he wakes up. Louis looked at Jane Foster, showed a strange smile, and said softly, "This lady, I want to take him away, and no one can stop him." You can definitely try it. Louis said with great interest, throwing the stun gun in his hand to Jane Foster. Jane Foster was stimulated by the contempt in Louis's words, picked up the stun gun and started shooting at Louis. But this time, Jane Foster saw clearly. All the electric current fired by the stun gun was diverted by the man in front of him with a wave of his hand. Sizzle. Poor Thor was convulsed by the electric shock. It was a bit embarrassing for Thor. Aren't you and him a partner? Why did you transfer it to him? Jane Foster couldn't bear to see Thor foaming at the mouth and twitching all over his body. I never said that I was a partner with him, but I can change someone. Louis pointed the direction of space transfer at Jane Foster's colleagues. Snapped. Sizzle. A series of dense electric currents, accompanied by the sound of falling to the ground, made Jane Foster's heart tingle. Eric, what did you do to Eric? Jane Foster yelled angrily. I didn't do this, didn't you press the stun gun? Louis looked strange. Women are really strange creatures. She was the culprit, but now she is blaming someone else. Okay, it's time for me to leave, have a nice night. Who the hell are you? Me? You can call me the god of space. Louis. Louis said jokingly. Jane Foster thought Louis was joking, but the next second, the scene where Louis opened the space barrier and kicked Thor in, caused Jane Foster's brain to shut down instantly. The man in front of me is really a god. Louis didn't know what his joke meant to a scientist who believed in science. He extracted a drop of blood from Thor's body and conducted research and observation. However, this is nothing but common blood, and normal human blood has no intention. Oh, Sure enough, gods who have lost their divine power are not much different from humans in essence. Lewis sighed. Although he knew the result a long time ago, he was still a little disappointed when he saw the essence of Lewis. He wants to study divine power to prepare for his next set of armor. As a result, the god Thor can no longer be called a god. Just as Lewis was considering whether to throw Thor aside and let him destroy himself, Thor woke up rubbing his head. The sequela of the body being shocked by the electric current is that it still twitches from time to time. What's wrong with me? Thor looked confused, and began to recall the fact that he was threatened by a weak woman with a weak weapon. The point is that he was actually stunned, which is simply a great shame. Hey, mortal, where is this place? Seeing Lewis, Thor regained the proud tone that a god should have. Lewis raised his eyebrows slightly and looked at Thor coldly. For such a proud and arrogant god, it would be better to give him a good beating. Qingming Reading Ceremony. Chapter 62. Seeing that Lewis was silent, Thor asked again, "Stupid mortal, what is this place?" Lewis shook his head slightly, "Such a Thor, let's beat him up." Thor felt the emotion in Louis' eyes. As the most combative god in Asgard, he has that look on his face every time he wants to fight. "Do you want to challenge me?" Thor laughed, "Come on, let the great Thor tell you how to fight." Louis kicked Thor off the bed. Thor, a dexterous carp, rolled over and looked at Lewis warily. Sneak attack? In the face of absolute strength, sneak attack is useless. Even a god who has lost his divine power is not something a mortal like you can offend. Thor sneered and assumed a fighting posture, guarding against another attack from Lewis. But Lewis ignored Thor's defense at all. The body passed directly through the space barrier, and appeared behind Thor in the next second. Kick out. What should I do when I encounter a proud and conceited god? Kick with your feet, kick hard, kick to death. Hey, it's not fair, the use of divine power is forbidden. Thor stumbled and leaned on the wall. Lewis' kick was merciless, and he came with the idea of beating Thor severely. But after hearing Thor's words, Lewis followed up with a kick and didn't kick it down. Instead, he looked at Thor with a strange expression, and asked, "You call this divine power?" "Not sure, but this kind of power is indeed similar to divine power. All the power in the world is from the same source," Thor said after feeling the power of space displayed by Lewis. "However, for the sake of your divine power, Thor allows you to be my friend." Thor once showed the pride of being a god. Boom! Lewis stepped up his kick. "This god, why is he such a talker?" "Ahem, phew." Thor crawled out from a pile of dust, almost fainted by Lewis' kick just now. However, despite the loss of divine power, Thor's constitution is still very powerful. "My friend, your welcome is not a friendly one." Perhaps because of the space power shown by Lewis, Thor feels pretty good about Lewis. The most important thing is that Thor didn't feel any malice from Lewis. "What is this place?" Thor asked. He had never heard of the power Lewis displayed in the other great worlds. "This is the human world, as you call it Asgard, this is Midgard. Midgard. Lewis replied. "The anger in my heart has subsided a lot, it is really that Thor's pride is a little brainless and angered Lewis." "Midgard? I actually came here." Thor suddenly realized that he appeared here, and Mjolnir presumably fell near here. "Friend, do you know where my weapon went?" "A cute little hammer." Lewis looked at Thor with a strange expression. This Thor's brain may have been in Asgard for a long time. He doesn't understand the world at all, and he's a little silly. "Thor, let's make a deal." "What deal?" "Mjolnir can't give it to you." "I'm not interested in Mjolnir, I want to say, after you recover your powers, I want to go to Asgard, how about it?" Lewis' goal has long been limited to the Earth, and Asgard obviously possesses the power of another divine power system. Lewis has long tried to perform over-the-top jumps when he could use the Tesseract to perform super long-distance jumps. But in the end it was given up because there were no suitable coordinates. Moreover, among the 9 kingdoms connected by the World Tree, the Earth seems to be the one that is isolated. I don't know the specific reason, but Lewis felt that blocking feeling. It can be broken open by force, but what will happen after breaking open, Lewis is not sure. This made Lewis set his target on Thor. Thor was silent, and gave Lewis a meaningful look, without answering. "What? Is there a problem?" Lewis asked. "Asgard doesn't welcome outsiders. I don't want to go back to Asgard and be driven out because of this." "Thor is not stupid." Who knows if Lewis has other plans? Midgard is the most powerful country in the 9 kingdoms, God knows if anyone would want to invade Asgard. Thank you for your care, but now I'm going to find my beloved hammer. Thor waved his hand. Lewis felt very mysterious to him. Thor didn't want to get involved with Louis, especially when Louis showed interest in Asgard. Lewis didn't stop him, but just looked at the closed door. Sure enough, even the naive Thor is not so easy to fool. However, it doesn't matter, if you want to go to Asgard, you don't have to take Thor's route. All roads lead to Asgard. Watching Thor leave, Lewis ignored it and passed through the space barrier. Appeared at S.H.I.E.L.Ds temporary research base. Mjolnir is here. However, in the dead of night, there is not even a single person here. It seems that even the people of S.H.I.E.L.D are very comfortable with Mjolnir. After all, I have tried truck pulling, crane lifting. Even if you can't pick it up, who will compete with this iron bump? Louis looked at Mjolnir, whose inscription was clearly a magical spell. Mjolnir. Lewis didn't know why, but he could pronounce the name of this Mjolnir. Buzz buzz. Mjolnir rang, as if answering Louis's call. Do you understand? Lewis just obeyed his will and yelled out casually, not expecting Mjolnir to respond to it. Buzz buzz. Mjolnir continued to buzz to communicate with Louis. It's not a hammer that only Thor can handle, it's just a spell cast by Odin. Only those with real strength can pick it up. Louis had never considered Mjolnir, but now he saw how enthusiastic Mjolnir was. I'm sorry if I don't take it myself. Lewis grasped the handle of Mjolnir's hammer, thinking that it would take a lot of strength, but he didn't expect that it would not be too heavy in his hand. Odin, far away in Asgard, felt the spell he had left on Mjolnir. He said in disbelief, how is it possible? Did Thor realize the real power so quickly? For his son, Odin can be said to know very well. In a short period of time, it is impossible to comprehend what I mean. So there must be someone else who picked up Mjolnir, could it be someone from Earth? Odin's heart is full of doubts, but in any case, all this is for Thor to experience it himself. Globe, New Mexico. Lewis, who picked up Mjolnir, only felt the power of thunder sweeping into his body. This is the power of thunder, a kind of Asgard divine power. But this force was firmly kicked out of Louis's body by the space gem. Buzz buzz. Mjolnir trembled, expressing his grievance. Okay, just follow me. Louis doesn't know the meaning of space gem, but as the first space gem to express his affection to Lewis, its opinions still need to be referred to. As for Mjolnir, Louis doesn't like to fight with a hammer. A real man should wear a Kamen Rider's holster and finish off his opponent with a night kick. To put it bluntly, Lewis really didn't like Mjolnir. This hammer was originally tailor-made for Thor. As for Lewis becoming a more suitable candidate than Thor? Treasures, the virtuous live there. In the dark night, Thor, who was looking for the hammer, suddenly felt the top of his head turn green. An unreasonable panic made him a little embarrassed. Is something wrong with Mjolnir? Thor's heart became more and more anxious, and then in the wilderness, he found Jane Foster who dragged his colleague away. History is always amazing coincidences. When Lewis did not interfere too much with Thor's world line, the world line automatically corrected, and Thor still met Jane Foster. You are, the woman who threatened me with a weapon. Thor was furious when he saw Jane Foster. He, the majestic future king of Asgard, was knocked unconscious by a small weapon. Are you that lunatic? Jane Foster didn't expect that she would see this lunatic again. Wasn't he taken away by God? Could it be that God despised him for being stupid and let him back? God, please, God, come and take this maniac away. Crazy. Thor's face became more and more ugly. This damn woman. Woman, you pd me off. Thor gritted his teeth and walked towards Jane Foster. Snapped. In the next second, Thor fell to the ground again, twitching and trembling all over. Jane Foster's stun gun hit Thor accurately again. Was about to cry, I really didn't do it on purpose, please, is there any God to help me? Why did you let me encounter this kind of thing? It's really hard for me. Dragging two big men to walk is really embarrassing for Jane Foster's small arms and legs. The communicator was also unable to use because of the magnetic field changes caused by the arrival of Mjolnir and Thor during this period. Lewis observed Thor's situation through the power of space. When seeing Thor being stunned by a stun gun, Lewis suddenly thought of a word: electric fish. Electric Thor is simply easier than electric fish. Thor really lives up to the name of Thor. I think it's a good choice for you to join me, Lewis said to Mjolnir. Mjolnir, who was suppressed by the Tesseract, hummed back, approving Louis' words. Qingming Reading Ceremony. Chapter 63. As the S.H.I.E.L.D who has Mjolnir in his pocket. While reassuring that no one can take Mjolnir away, there will still be routine checks every day. Hey, man, how could anyone take that thing away? Who says it's not? This kind of inspection is a waste of human resources. Look, isn't the hammer still there? Yes, still. Where? As routine inspection staff, the two immediately sounded the most advanced alarm. Phil Coulson and Hawkeye felt the scene immediately. Seeing the empty pothole, the faces of both of them became ugly. Hawkeye, as the main garrison in the outer circle, did not find any trace of anyone. Internally, because Mjolnir destroyed the magnetic field, there was no way to install monitoring. Is it under such circumstances that someone actually took Mjolnir? Where should the majesty of S.H.I.E.L.D be placed? It hasn't been long since Hydra took Tesseract away last time. Now, S.H.I.E.L.D has been provoked once again. What's going on? Hawkeye looked at Phil Coulson. I'm not sure if it's an insider yet. Phil Coulson said with a cold face, don't report this matter to Director Nick Fury for the time being. What are you going to do next? Hawkeye asked. As the supreme officer of this temporary research base, Phil Coulson has the highest command authority. Take a thorough look inside first, and the external monitoring did not find any suspicious persons. Phil Coulson said in a deep voice. Now the biggest possibility is that insiders commit crimes. Agent Phil Coulson, have you ever considered the paranormal? Hawkeye asked suddenly. It's hard to say, but let's do a thorough internal investigation first. Phil Coulson nodded. He knows that there are supernatural abilities, but he can't attribute everything to supernatural abilities, otherwise the world will be messed up. While swinging the small hammer, Lewis imagined the situation of the temporary station. Mjolnir is engraved with magic runes, and even if it is thrown out, it can be returned to the hand at any time. Lewis throws it away for a while, treating it as a fitness toy. Thor on the other side was also brought back to the hotel by Jane Foster. Thor, who regained his composure, also began to understand everything around him. The plot seems to be developing normally, but because Lewis took Mjolnir. After a thorough internal investigation failed, Phil Coulson began to search for suspicious persons appearing near the town. In the hotel, Jane Foster asked with great interest, you mean, you're looking for a small hammer? Yes, it should have fallen nearby, I need to find it. Thor nodded. Okay, I'll help, can you describe what it looks like? Beep. Beep. While the two were communicating, the doorbell of the guest room rang. Which one? Jane Foster called. Hello, this is the corn sausage pizza you ordered. A voice from the door rang. I didn't order any pizza, Thor, did you order it? Jane Foster asked suspiciously. No, I'll go and have a look. Thor walked towards the door, not realizing that the danger was behind the door. Click. Thor opened the door, and at that very moment, a group of S.H.I.E.L.D squads in black armed body armor rushed in. Thor was firmly suppressed to the ground. Who are you? Jane Foster was taken aback. But it was quickly captured. Let her go, something is coming at me. Thor wants to resist, but he has no capital to resist after losing his divine power. Phil Coulson took the list and compared Thor's face. Suspected foreign personnel, and no record of entry and exit, take away. Phil Coulson said indifferently. Do you know who I am? Thor wrenched away, kicking the S.H.I.E.L.D team members away. But in the next second, more fists hit Thor's face. Thor passed out magnificently. Phil Coulson nodded in satisfaction, signaling his subordinates to let go of Jane Foster. He said in an apologetic tone, I'm very sorry, Dr. Jane, this man is involved in a theft case, we need to take him back for investigation. After all, Phil Coulson showed his identity card from the Homeland Strategic Defense Attack and Logistic Support Bureau. Jane Foster wanted to say something, but saw Phil Coulson's unquestionable eyes, or the documents, and finally said nothing. When Thor woke up, he was woken up by a basin of cold water. He immediately realized his situation and wanted to break free, but his arms and legs were firmly chained to the chair. "What on earth are you trying to do?" Thor huffed. As Thor of Asgard, when had he been wronged like this? "In the end, I came to the poor place of Midgard. In the past few days, I fainted and recovered." Sorry, sir, we just wanted to ask for some information. Perhaps the means used are a little too much, but I need an explanation for the fact that you are the only one in the whole town who has no entry and exit records. If there are a lot of guys who don't have a freshman record, then Phil Coulson will be a little more lenient because he is worried about picking the wrong guy. But in this situation, it is clear that the man in front of him did it. Are you worthy of my explanation? Thor still retained his pride as the Prince of Asgard. Stupid mortals dare to treat themselves like this. You're welcome. Phil Coulson waved his hand. The subordinates around him immediately pressed the switch, and a series of dense electric currents were connected to Thor's body through the chair. Stupid of who Thor cursed intermittently, but what was ushered in was nothing more than a more powerful electric current. White smoke came out of Thor's head, and the electric current for such a long time made Phil Coulson more sure that Thor was unusual. Can you tell me your organization and your purpose now, Zhaos? Thor's head was forced up, and Phil Coulson asked indifferently. Thor, he.Tui. Phil Coulson's face became even more indifferent, and he said softly, go on. Zzz. Crackling. The sound of electric current was heard endlessly in the interrogation room, and Thor felt that he was about to be electrocuted and delirious. Where are you from? Phil Coulson's voice sounded again. Asgard. Thor replied weakly. Thor, who had been severely beaten, began to learn to endure the pain. Phil Coulson frowned. He hadn't heard of Asgard. Look, where is Asgard? Phil Coulson said. Soon some subordinates said, report sir, Asgard is the place where the mythical Aesir Protoss live. Phil Coulson couldn't help bursting out mommy fuck. How dare this guy play himself? Electricity, continue to electrify me. Chapter 64. Lewis, who observed Thor through the power of space, felt a toothache. Don't look at Phil Coulson as a nice guy, but Phil Coulson can be the best agent in SHIELD. This is not something that a good man can win. Cruelty is also an essential quality for an agent. Lewis was worried about whether he should help. What if Thor becomes the first Thor ever to be electrocuted? This is probably the biggest joke ever in Asgard. The interrogation of Phil Coulson is still going on, but from Thor's mouth, there will always be only words like Asgard and I am a prince. Phil Coulson wrote the sentence suspected to have a mental illness on the interrogation paper. Only then did Thor get a break. However, the heart also buried the hatred for SHIELD. As for counting on Thor to join S.H.I.E.L.D. in the future? Dream. It would be nice not to send an army to attack SHIELD. Thor, who was thrown into the cell, was dying, his divine power was suppressed, and his Protoss constitution was also suppressed. It hurts, it hurts. The most important point is that it is easy to die. For a moment Thor felt like he was going to die. When Lewis was thinking about whether Thor would be grateful for his appearance at this time, a figure 210 suddenly appeared in the sky. Lewis narrowed his eyes slightly, delighted in his heart. After waiting for so long, the Lord finally arrived. The god of trickery, Loki. He is also Thor's younger brother. Loki lightly knocked out several prison guards who were guarding him, and walked to the cell. Foreseeing his big brother. Thor became like this. Loki really is, the daughter-in-law laughed out loud. No, no, hold back. Loki puts his smile away and puts on a worried look. Snapped. The prison door was directly destroyed by Loki, and Thor collapsed on the ground, barely raising his head, trying to remember the face of the visitor. Loki. Thor never dreamed that Loki would be here. My dear big brother. Thor, how did you become like this? Loki pretended to be concerned, but his heart was already full of joy. He was still thinking about who would have done what he hadn't done for so long. It must feel good to beat Thor up. Really want to try it myself. Damn humans, damn S.H.I.E.L.D, they should do this to me. Thor was so angry that he was almost going crazy. He has already firmly remembered the name S.H.I.E.L.D. in his heart. After he recovers, the first thing he goes looking for is SHIELD S.H.I.E.L.D. Loki repeats the name several times. As long as you bully Thor, we're friends. But you almost tried to kill Thor, that's my enemy. Poor S.H.I.E.L.D. has no idea what the hell he's messing with. Loki, take me out, take me back to Asgard, I don't want to stay in this backward Midgard at all, Thor begged. He had had enough of the life he was living now, and the Prince of Asgard had never been wronged like this. Loki hesitated, didn't speak, just sighed. What's wrong? Thor asked. Thor, my dear big brother, because you attacked the Frost Titan without authorization, my father was seriously injured trying to save you, and he died not long ago. Now, I am the king of Asgard. Loki wiped away tears that didn't exist, and lied. No, it's impossible, how could the father? Thor held his head, his voice choked up, and he was a little speechless. Don't you still understand? My father planned to crown you king, but your actions made my father furious. In the end, my father was seriously injured and died in order to save you. The throne of Asgard can only be passed to I. Thor, you yourself abandoned the throne of Asgard, and you killed the king. Loki burst into tears, accusing Thor of every wrong move. All the reasons are attributed to Thor's head. This makes, Thor feel even more painful. Lewis came to the door through the space barrier, opened his mouth, and didn't know what to say. He is indeed the god of mischief, and his ability to deceive people is simply top-notch. Thor is afraid that he will be fooled by Loki. In other words, Loki is more suitable for the throne of Asgard than Thor. Definitely, except for the one who is not biological. Thor, my father's last hope is that you can live a good life in Midgard. Loki looked sad, and accompanied Thor in the pain of losing Odin. Finally, Thor couldn't bear the exhaustion, and passed out. The sad look on Loki's face was gone. Stupid big brother, let's stay on Earth forever. Humming a cheerful Asgard ballad, Loki walked out of the prison room in classical dance steps. Boom! The door of the prison behind him closed instantly, and the chains were not broken. Swish! Loki makes a perfect turn and almost cheers. The excited smile on his face stopped abruptly after seeing Lewis. Louis leaned against the wall, watching Loki vent his inner joy. Seeing Loki's expression stiffen, Lewis made a please gesture. You can continue to dance, and we will talk after you finish. Lewis said lightly. Loki's smile was still bright, and he continued to dance, but after turning around, a sudden killing intent broke out. A casual wave of your hand is huge amounts of explosion. Boom! The divine power exploded around Lewis as energy, almost completely destroying the walls of the prison. Revealing the fainted Thor inside. Go out and fight, I don't think you want to hurt Thor. Lewis laughed. Loki never meant to hurt Thor, definitely, mischievous teasing, that couldn't be called hurt. Loki snorted coldly, Thor has lost his divine power now, and Loki is also worried that the aftermath of the battle will affect Thor. He didn't want Thor dead. Loki raised his hand, and a dimensional rift opened in front of him. The huge rocks lined the other end of the rift, which looked like another world. Lewis didn't know that there would be places like this on Earth. Asgard? Lewis asked suspiciously. What? Don't you dare come over. Loki sneered. Why don't you dare? Lewis snorted coldly, it's just Asgard, and he planned to come here. But I didn't expect Loki to be so good. However, Loki's ability to forcibly open the dimensional rift and break through the barriers between Asgard and the Earth made Lewis a little envious. It can be seen that in the original play, Loki does not rely on the power of the space gem to open the door of space, but Loki's own magic also plays a big role in opening the dimensional cracks. Chapter 65. Armed with the space gem, Luigi doesn't have to worry about what Loki might do. Passing through the dimensional rift, Lewis felt that the air here had a different composition ratio than that of the Earth. Before Lewis could think, Loki's attack came again. As a member of the Frost Titan family, Loki was born with a unique grasp of the magic of the ice system. The divine art with extremely cold air almost covered the ground with pure white frost, and began to penetrate into Lewis' body. Ice, Louis sneered. To deal with cold, use fire. The 555 series of transformers are already in hand. Delta Henshin. The purple flame burned Lewis' body, but there was no slight damage. In the purple flames, the silver and black delta clothes covered Louis' whole body. The purple flames scorched the surrounding cold atmosphere. Like devouring, rushing towards the source of the cold breath. Delta's fire rushed towards Loki like a dragon. This forced Loki to stop the continuous output of freezing magic. Clang! The purple flames converge and return to themselves. Delta armor stood on the ground, and Silver Black's armor exuded a strong desire to attack. When Louis developed and built the Delta, he focused on the powerful offensive ability of the Delta. Loki looked at Delta warily. It should be something similar to Asgard armor. Faced with such armor, Lug did not dare to be careless. The purple flame just now actually made him feel like he was about to be destroyed. If you touch the upper point, I am afraid it will be very difficult to solve. I think we can calm down and have a good chat. Louis doesn't want to fight Loki. If Odin is provoked, Louis is not sure that he can survive in the other existence of level Godfather now. That is a powerful and ancient existence that has lived for 300,000 years. I think so too. Loki laughed too, but he didn't relax his vigilance at all. You remove the divine spell first. You take off your armor first. Two people said at the same time, no one will let the other. How about starting from the day? Then let's go together. I counted to 3 and lifted them together. Good. Luigi and Loki stare at each other, and Luigi starts counting. 3. The extremely cold magic and the purple flame collided together. Both of them retreated in embarrassment. Obviously, in the confrontation just now, no one would let the other go. In the end, no one got any benefit. He, that's boring. Louis sneered. Each to each other. Loki grinned darkly. This was the first time he met someone who was as gloomy as himself, and they all wanted to go together. That being the case, it must not be left alive. As soon as Loki thought of this, his body floated in the air, and huge amounts of divine power surged around him. Countless energies gather together, rub against each other, collide, and explode if you are not careful. But Loki is in control with ease, worthy of being one of the most powerful necromancers in Asgard. Feeling such huge amounts of power, Louis' complexion also became heavy. The mobile phone on the belt was taken out, and Louis pressed the middle button. Phase. Red Black's Phase replaces the Delta, which is the second battle armor Louis is most familiar with. Loki didn't dare to be careless in the slightest. The countless energies gathered to the extreme, and a series of constant explosions began to occur around Louis. Huge amounts of explosions almost resounded through the sky, and the distant Asgard could hear the battle here. Loki can't care about so much. At worst, he will say that he is to kill the invaders who invaded Asgard. Louis waved. One after another the space barriers are constantly dodging these energy explosions. However, he was still attacked by the aftermath. Give up, since you know those secrets, you will die for me. Loki's hands controlled the frost, ready to freeze Louis forever. This is the power of the gods, the ability from the Frost Titans. But Louis' speed is faster. Phaeza's accelerated form is activated, and the speed reaches the limit in an instant. Start up. With a speed of Mach 50, even Loki is hard to guard against. The rising red airflow wrapped around the body, these are the breaths of Photon's blood evaporating under the load. Silver Black's Phaeza's high-speed movement, the core matrix on the chest is running at high speed, cooperating with Louis's attack. Loki only felt that the space was imprisoned in an instant. Several scarlet drills aimed at him, which made him feel uneasy. Phaeza's figure disappeared and reappeared, piercing through the crimson drill bits one by one, and the violently rotating crimson electric drill was accumulating. Piercing Loki's body hard. Crimson electric drill .9 combos. The crimson electric drill scurry around Loki's body with the power of space, and countless explosions sounded in Loki's body. The vibration caused by the explosion almost cut off a layer of the surrounding ground. Even with the body of a frost titan, Loki felt that he was facing the threat of death. Are you really going to die here? Just when Loki thought so, a gentle energy injected into Loki's body. The eight-legged Pegasus Perversus stepped forward through the void and landed in midair. The Drawnir gold ring carried on his back exudes a strong infusion of divine power into Loki's body. Healed all damage from the crimson drill. Louis shook his head disdainfully. From this we can see how eccentric Odin is. It's no wonder that Loki wanted to usurp the throne. Odin went there himself to save Thor, and sent a horse to save Loki. This treatment can be described as worlds apart. Loki, who was recovering from his injuries, glared at Louis, but did not speak. Since Spreversus is here, it naturally represents Odin's will. Louis didn't touch the armor, just looked at this 8-legged Pegasus, a rare species, and really wanted to raise a page. Sensing the offensive thought in Louis's mind, Spreversus snorted and motioned for Louis to follow him. Since this was an invitation from God King Odin, Louis had no way to refuse. With his current combat power, it is only possible to defeat this 8-legged Pegasus by turning on the burst mode, let alone when facing Odin. That is a well-known existence in the universe, level Godfather and other powerhouses. Louis didn't touch Faiza's arm, and walked side by side with Loki, following behind Pegasus. "Why don't you ride a horse?" Louis asked curiously. "You can try." Loki urged Louis to do it. "Forget it. Louis is not stupid, just follow behind obediently. I think the status of the two of us is not as good as a horse." Louis felt a little embarrassed, but it seemed that it was true. Loki was silent and did not speak. In Asgard, Loki is Odin's son in name, but his status is not very high in reality. Chapter 66. Although Odin acted as if Loki was his own son. But his own son never got the treatment he deserved. When Thor came of age, he directly declared his succession to the throne. What about Loki? Loki was frantically thinking about these unfair treatments in his mind, almost going crazy, and the breath on his body became unstable. "Hey!" Louis bumped Loki. "What are you trying to say?" Loki wasn't used to being touched. "I don't think we have a particularly big hatred." "I won't say those things," Louis said with a smile. Loki turned his head away, ignoring Louis. "I also have a big brother. His name is Tony. My father abandoned me when I was young. I only discovered my background later. I was kind of playing tricks on Tony, and I liked bullying him, taking everything from him, not 5 or 6 inches, and it never occurred to me to hurt him." "You too, right?" Louis laughed. His words pierced the deepest defenses of Loki's heart. Loki also never wanted Thor to die. Everything he did was more like a child's prank. Loki watched Louis's face, blocked by Faiza's armor. But soon, Louis disarmed the armor. "Do you want to see if I'm lying?" Louis read Loki's thoughts with a glance. "I don't." Loki turned his head arrogantly. But there was a smile in his eyes. In Louis' eyes, he didn't see the slightest lie. When Louis heard Loki's arrogant voice, he knew that Loki believed his words. "Come to Asgard. In Asgard, where the gods live. Countless gods of the Aesir pantheon walk here, busy. Looking carefully, it seems that there is no difference between office workers working on the earth. The highest point of Asgard is the huge amounts of throne, made of gorgeous metal, as hard and strong as Mjolnir. The great god King Odin sat there, overlooking everything. He is the god King Odin, king of the gods and one of the rulers of the universe." Louis saw the changes in the world, the infinite power, and all the nature and beauty in Odin's one eye. Everything in it is what Louis wants to experience and possess. Mjolnir in Louis seemed to feel that he had returned to his familiar place, and was jumping for joy. Pegasus took Louis to Asgard and flew out. Odin looked at Louis, and the two were staring at each other. In an instant, both of them got what they wanted to see. Loki looked at Louis with some surprise. In his impression, few people could meet such Odin's eyes. Even himself, even Thor, dare not face Odin squarely. But Louis did. "I see." Odin gave Louis a meaningful look, sighed and said, "You are an existence born to be a king." As soon as these words came out, the whole of Asgard seemed to fall into a brief silence. After a while, the cloud is calm and the wind is light. Loki rubbed his head, feeling like something was missing in his head. What did Wang Shi say just now? "Go back as soon as possible, Asgard does not welcome the arrival of humans." Odin regained his dignity and said in a cold voice. In a trance, there was an extremely cold airflow, trying to expel Louis. Asgard only recognizes one king, only one Odin. Therefore, Odin's words cannot be followed in Asgard. "Loki, step back too." Odin issued an order to evict, and Louis and Loki had to leave Asgard. "Father's attitude is a bit strange, but since you have an annoying big brother like me, I'll send you back to Earth." Loki was a little arrogant. Although he doesn't really think of Louis as one of his own yet, there's an annoying big brother thing about Louis that makes Loki warm to him a little. "Can I go to other places? Isn't this the kingdom of the 9 gods?" Louis asked curiously. "That's not okay, or I'll be punished." Loki shook his head. In Lewis's disappointed eyes, he said again, however, I can take you to see, but only in a few places. The dimensional rift was opened by Loki, and the two disappeared into it. Odin looked at the two people leaving and sighed heavily. When he and Lewis looked at each other, he saw the demeanor that the king should have in Lewis' eyes. Born to be king? No, Lewis is the king. It's just walking the road of becoming a king again. The throne is ready and waiting for Lewis to sit on it. In Lewis' eyes, Odin saw the destruction, and the endless howling. Under the throne, countless people died in battle, both enemies and partners. Hope this universe won't be in turmoil again. Odin let out an old sigh. He has lived for 300,000 years, which is why he is eager to pass the throne to Thor. Huge amounts of volcanoes. Tall mountains. Weird sculpture. There is also a large group of dwarfs with big beards who are no taller than Lewis' chest. Beard mopping the floor, scruffy. The air smelled of fire, metal, and dark ale. This is the kingdom of dwarf. The only good friends with Asgard are the dwarfs of Wardheim. They are really short, but they are very interesting and have a good personality. Thor's hammer is made by them. They never gave me a present, though. As soon as he said this, Loki's eyes darkened. It's so sad for Loki, there is injustice everywhere. Lewis patted Loki on the shoulder, expressing his understanding. The same as Tianya's fall, Lewis suddenly felt that his appearance is not so miserable. Tony is a big brother with emotional intelligence. As for Thor? Not to mention, this is just a fool. If I want to ask dwarfs to help me build armor, what kind of 2.3 price will I have to pay? Lewis asked curiously. He actually has 2 sets of armor that dwarfs need to help build. It's hard to say, it depends on your relationship with this group of dwarfs. What they like most is spirits and crafting. Loki introduced. We don't have much time, I'll take you to see other places. Louis nodded, and followed Loki into the dimensional rift. The space gem has already recorded the coordinates of Wordheim, and Lewis can come back anytime, anywhere. As soon as Lewis stepped out of the dimensional rift, he felt a biting cold. Achoo! Lewis couldn't help shivering. Ha 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 ha, this is Jotunheim, the lair of the Frost Titan, but they were only broken into by the stupid Thor some time ago. We can take a look quietly. Loki showed Lewis the world of ice and snow behind him. Chapter 67. Looking at Loki's expression, Lewis felt that it was better not to say that Loki was the Frost Titan. No matter how you look at it, you will feel that Loki is much worse than himself. Loki is the real thief and father. No matter what kind of plan Odin made, Loki was forced to leave his own group. This is an indisputable fact. Jotunheim is the lair of the Frost Titan, where ice and snow are rampant. The living environment here is very harsh, and Lewis used the space gem to record the coordinates. Besides, there are no other places in the 9 kingdoms of God that you can go to. Midgard, the earth you call, also belongs to one of the 9 kingdoms of God. You should be more familiar with it than me. Loki opens a dimensional rift, and a dimensional rift opens in the wilds of New Mexico. Fortunately, Loki is not opened in the original place. If you come to Midgard, I will also take you to other places. Lewis laughed. Loki didn't respond, closing the dimensional rift after Lewis walked into 05. Looking at the empty Jotunheim, Loki took a deep breath. I don't want to go back to Midgard, leave it to Thor. As for me, I shall be king of Asgard. Loki's ambitions are evident at this moment. The moment he returned to Earth, Lewis found that the town had entered a state of alert. Louis and Loki's first skirmish almost destroys the prison. Such powerful energy made both Hawkeye and Phil Coulson feel that things were not going well. Can only dial Fury's phone. Fury was silent on the other end of the phone for a moment, and there seemed to be other voices in the office. Okay, I see, I will send our new members to help. Fury said coldly. But the anger almost set Fury on fire. First the Tesseract, then the mysterious hammer from beyond. Now, more and more organizations don't take S.H.I.E.L.D. seriously? The ability to take things from a distance like that and avoid searches and surveillance is obviously a special ability. Fury looked at General Ross in front of him, his face softened. Ross, it seems that I need to trouble you. Our members have a little problem in New Mexico. Fury said. General Ross, who can also be called Red King and Red Titan, has officially joined the Avengers. At the same time, because of his military status, his position is second only to Fury, and he is one of the leaders of the Avengers. Don't worry, leave it to me. General Ross nodded. He still retains the right to the military, but that doesn't prevent General Ross from joining the Avengers. As Fury said, Avengers is an existence independent of S.H.I.E.L.D, and naturally independent of the military's jurisdiction. By the way, why isn't Mr. Lewis here? General Ross has always wanted to ask this question. In the list of members of Avengers at this stage, he did not see Lewis' name. Fury froze for a moment, and said somewhat, he refused to join the Avengers, he belongs to S.H.I.E.L.D for the time being. But I'm trying to invite Louis' big brother, Tony Stark, who is also armored. General Ross nodded, he just understood the situation. As for Louis' refusal, I'm afraid it has something to do with Louis' character. General Ross thinks that Louis is an unrestrained person. As for Tony Stark, even if General Ross doesn't pay attention to Entertainment Weekly, he knows Tony Stark is Iron Man. General Ross leaves. Fury's expression management collapsed in an instant. It's okay if you don't mention Louis, but when Louis is mentioned, Rui gets angry. Anyway, things get tricky when you get involved with the Stark family. Fury already knew that Tony was using a small palladium arc reactor, and Tony must have been troubled by palladium poisoning as well. Originally thought, by reminding Tony about Howard Stark's legacy, let Tony find a solution on his own. At that time, Tony will definitely express his gratitude and join the Avengers smoothly. However, the goddamn Louis actually developed the arc reactor with new elements, which caused Fury to lose face and lose his face. Excitedly wanted to remind Tony, but he finished building the new element arc reactor. Tony also showed it to his brother's chief with great heart, this is a gift from Louis. Fury felt as bad as eating a ton of palladium. This is outrageous, Nima. Fury always felt that he was supposed to stand up and do things himself, but Louis preempted them all. Fury felt that Louis had a natural ability to overcome himself. Back to New Mexico. Thor has been regarded as a psychopath. Phil Coulson has reduced the control of Thor, allowing him to eat and relax normally. But these are not what Thor wants, he is planning to escape from this prison. Especially, at a time when prisons are getting thinner recently. Thor guessed that something must have happened to the outside world, so he mobilized the staff in the prison. Martial law has already begun in the small town, and those without proof of entry and exit will be included in the watch list. The corner of Louis's mouth curled into a smile, and the other end of the space barrier was Washington Dulles International Airport. When he came out again, Louis was holding a 371st class ticket to Belém Airport in New Mexico. To camouflage, you must camouflage seamlessly. Louis simply disguised the ticket and the proof of entry and exit together. As for Jane Foster and Thor who had seen him, they were directly ignored by Louis. Jane Foster has been ruled out of the plot. As for Thor, is it feasible for a person who is judged to be mentally abnormal to say something? Louis sat in the first-class seat, leaning against the window submissively. Not long after, another tall figure walked in. The tall figure said in a tone of surprise and fear, "Mr. Lewis, I never expected to see you here." General Ross felt that he had a little bit of a back, and he could meet Louis every time he took a plane. "I will definitely not buy a first-class ticket next time." Louis didn't expect to see General Ross here, but when he thought of General Ross appearing in Washington, the situation seemed clear at a glance. General Ross joins the Avengers. Is General Ross going on a mission? Louis asked casually. Is it difficult for Mr. Lewis? General Ross was also puzzled. It stands to reason that it is impossible for Fury to do this kind of thing of handing over the task to Avengers and handing it over to SHIELD. If it is cooperation, then it is impossible not to know. Chapter 68. I just heard that there's an extraterrestrial object in New Mexico, and I'm going to check it out. You know, my armor requires special metals to upgrade. Louis felt that the presence of General Ross was so timely. With the endorsement of General Ross and Phil Coulson, it is absolutely impossible for them to suspect themselves. Hearing Louis' answer, General Ross also heaved a sigh of relief. Then I wish Mr. Lewis good luck. General Ross congratulated. In his heart, he only hoped that after Louis got off the plane, he would go far away quickly. But the facts are not as expected. When two people appeared outside the town's cordon at the same time, Louis greeted General Ross very familiarly. General Ross, it seems that we are destined for the same destination. Not to mention General Ross, even Phil Coulson and Hawkeye, who came to greet General Ross together, shivered subconsciously. Louis, the lingering guy, actually followed here. The video of that battle has simply become the ceiling of Avengers' combat power. Even with the addition of General Ross, it's a dish at all. Phil Coulson, long time no see, are you here to greet me? You don't have to be so polite, I just want to see if the extraterrestrial objects match the armor metal I made. Louis gave Phil Coulson a warm hug. Phil Coulson wanted to cry for help, but both Hawkeye and General Ross silently turned their heads away. You are familiar with Louis, so go and receive him. Hawkeye and General Ross left in good agreement. Put Phil Coulson aside entirely. Mr. Louis, the extraterrestrial object is gone. Someone has stolen the extraterrestrial object. We are also looking for it. Phil Coulson had no choice but to explain the situation to Louis. Really? Do you need my help? Louis asked warmly and kindly. Mr. Louis is bothering you. If necessary, we will find you. Phil Coulson replied cautiously, for fear of angering Louis. Okay, if you need anything, please come to me, after all, I'm also a member of S.H.I.E.L.D. Louis deliberately emphasized the three words S.H.I.E.L.D, which made Phil Coulson speechless for a while. You also know that you are from S.H.I.E.L.D? Don't piss off Director Nick Fury if you know it. The evil S.H.I.E.L.D is up and down, and now everyone is in danger. Even Fury didn't dare to touch Fury's bad luck, so he volunteered to come here. However, no matter how much Phil Coulson complained, he dared not speak out. Louis and Phil Coulson completed a friendly exchange, and naturally washed away their suspicions. No one would have imagined that Mjolnir, whom they had been looking for day and night, was now lying quietly in Louis' personal space. With the addition of General Ross, S.H.I.E.L.D's strict investigation has become more thorough. But one thing in common is that no matter who they are, they will not disturb Louis' quiet life. As the current ceiling of S.H.I.E.L.D's combat power, whoever dares to disturb Louis will be called death. Lu's purity, when he didn't have to deal with other people's disturbance, Lu began to collect legendary about Wordheim. These legendaries have been handed down as early as thousands of years ago. At that time, Asgard still maintained a close connection with the earth. If Louis wants dwarfs to help him build armor, he must find something that can impress dwarfs. In addition to fine wine and iron ore, this group of dwarfs seems to be as violent as Asgard's pantheon. Every dwarf is a fighter. This got Louis thinking. In Legendary, as long as you defeat dwarf, you can let dwarf build a weapon for you. However, the myth Legendary is just a legendary after all, so you have to test it yourself if it is true or not. Louis came to Wordheim again through the address of Wordheim recorded by Tesseract. Only, this time without Loki's magic to help hide his figure. Standing in the middle of a group of dwarfs, Louis stands out from the crowd and is unique. Look, what's that? Protoss. There is no divine power around him, this is a human being. Humans, how many years has it been since humans came to Wordheim? Woohoo, this is a rare species. Is this human? It looks like it has small arms and legs, and it has no strength at all. Louis became a rare species for the first time, and being surrounded by a group of dwarfs was not a good experience. The curiosity of this group of dwarfs is really strong. Louis looked around, it was the first time he came alone, and he didn't know the rules. I heard that the dwarf clan has a rule that as long as they defeat you, they can ask you to forge a weapon. Louis shouted loudly. Immediately there were replies from the dwarfs around. Nothing wrong, just beat us. But a weak human like you has no way to fight against the great dwarf. The power of dwarf is beyond the comprehension of humans like you. Countless dwarfs shouted, in their eyes, human beings are always synonymous with weakness. So far, many weapons that have been handed down on the earth for a long time are from the handwriting of dwarfs. After so many years, will the dwarfs abide by this rule? Louis said mockingly. Great dwarfs come and never break their promises. We are the most disciplined race. Human, are you provoking, do you want to fight? The dwarfs were stimulated by Louis' words, and expressed their anger one after another. Louis' constitution has changed a long time ago, and when faced with so many dwarf auras, he still doesn't change his face. There are even signs of pushing back his aura. The aura of the dwarfs gathered together turned into a huge amounts of forging hammer, smashing towards Louis. But Louis' aura condensed into the appearance of a crimson electric drill, piercing through the forging hammer abruptly. Boom! The roar of mental power caused the dwarfs around to take a few steps back. But, obliged, Louis remained unscathed. This made all the dwarfs look at Louis with horrified eyes. Humans actually have such an aura? You must be the strongest among human beings. We dwarfs welcome the strongest. A dwarf with a beard around his waist stood up to round the field. He looked very old. Who is the most powerful blacksmith of the dwarf clan? I want to ask him to help make weapons. Louis also gave it a step down as a matter of course. After all, this is still the territory of the dwarf clan. The most powerful blacksmith of the dwarf clan is naturally the king of the dwarf clan. However, I advise you to give up as a strong human being. The master of the dwarf clan is a very powerful existence. Hearing this, Louis frowned. King Dwarf, as the king of a realm, is definitely not weak, at least he has the power to mobilize a kingdom. Otherwise, why be king? The current self is definitely not an opponent, it seems that he can only settle for the next best thing. Chapter 69. At Louis' request, the dwarfs surrounded him and came to a huge amounts of redstone workshop. Hot red magma flows into the workshop from the outside. Dun! 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 The heavy hammer again and again is like hitting the heart. If it is a person with a heart problem, if he is resonated by the sound of such a heavy hammer, he may die miserably. This is Langdon, one of the most powerful blacksmiths under the king of dwarf. The old man of dwarf introduced. Silver runes are engraved on the door of the workshop, the whole door and the workshop are integrated, and there are faint spatial fluctuations on the surface. Are these magic runes of space? Louis looked curiously, but saw a thick hand with huge amounts of red protruding from the door. A dwarf with a red beard and his entire body as if it had only been soaked in magma walked out. He yawned, looked at the people around him in a daze, and said in a low voice, "What are you all doing at my door? Do you want to fight Langton?" As he spoke, he waved the forging hammer in his hand that was taller than him. Strong! This was Louis' first thought when he saw this dwarf blacksmith. With that kind of momentum, he is definitely a powerhouse, at least not weaker than the eight-legged Pegasus, and even stronger. Louis showed a hint of joy, such a dwarf blacksmith is the most suitable for Louis. Langton rubbed his eyes, and finally saw clearly 307, the outstanding human being Louis. The Protoss of Asgard. Langton's big head was full of question marks. Langdon, this is a human being, from Zeegard. Human. Langton was extremely fast, and he came in front of Louis in an instant. The messy hair stood up high, just reaching Louis' shoulders. Louis could even smell the burnt smell of metal filings and flames colliding together. It's really human. Langton looked at Louis and said, "Human, do you know the rules when you come to me? Beat me, and I will help you build it. If you lose, give me your weapon, I smell a powerful weapon on you." Langton's eyes widened, and the forging hammer in his hand pointed at Louis. "It's a fair rule, so let's fight here." Louis thought about it carefully. The so-called powerful weapons are probably the 555 series armor. Unexpectedly, this dwarf has some skills. We're going to the arena. As Langton said, he adjusted a few runes on the door of the workshop, and the door turned into a whirlpool-like hole. This is a space channel constructed through magic runes. Louis followed Langton and got in, and the surrounding dwarfs immediately cheered. This kind of confrontation has not been seen for a long time. Humans are an ideal gimmick. Langton is almost the strongest dwarf under the Dwarf King. Everyone is not optimistic that Louis can win. They believe that the Great Dwarf will eventually be invincible. The arena utilizes space magnification technology. It doesn't look big, but after entering, you will find that it is a huge amounts of space. The technology of Asgard and Wordheim is indeed far superior to that of Earth. Boom! The huge amounts of forging hammer hit the ground, and the long handle was knotted together like tree roots. This looks a lot more imposing than Mjolnir, Louis thought to himself. Mjolnir let out a grunt of displeasure, but was unflappable because Louis was telling the truth. This hammer of the storm is made of URU, and the handle of the hammer is made of the trunk of the world tree Ogatrashi. Lang Dunwang introduced his weapon in a loud voice. This forging hammer is made of the same material as Mjolnir, except that it didn't spend too much effort on the runes, but in terms of materials, it can be compared to Mjolnir. Langton looked at Louis, who hadn't shown his weapon yet. Langton is very sensitive, he knows that Louis has the smell of a powerful weapon. Louis took out the mobile phone transformer and pressed a number. 5. 5. 5. Fuzzies. Henshin. Louis yelled lightly. Red's Fuzzy's armor covers the whole body, and the center logo on the belt lights up. Langton, who originally wanted to mock Louis for taking out a gadget, immediately became serious. Fuzzies gave him the feeling that it was dangerous. But it doesn't look strong. However, the battles of dwarfs have always been simple and rough. Langton picked up his sledgehammer just as Louis smashed it. Louis dodges, but the sledgehammer he received is still impartial. Cut, it's the same routine as Mjolnir. Louis sneered. Scrape apart the space barrier with both hands, and appear behind Langton in the next second. The sledgehammer was still locked on Louis' body, but it was Langton who stood in front of Louis. A nimble human being. Langton grabbed his weapon and swept it behind him. Louis held it with both hands, and was still swept away for several kilometers. Every attack of Langton carries extremely strong power. In terms of power, the dwarf clan is one of the best existences in the entire universe. Fuzzies was repelled, and 2 long corridors were drawn in the battlefield, and smoke and dust were everywhere for a while. Boy, give up, you can't stop dwarf's sledgehammer. Langton laughed loudly. But the only response to him was Louis' cold and ruthless voice amidst the smoke and dust. Start up. Silver and black demons loomed in the smoke and dust, and the core matrix on the chest was blurred into a still picture in this lesson. When Louis faced Langton, he knew that he couldn't rely on a regular state to win. Therefore, Louis found the right opportunity, and the accelerated form opened instantly. Several of Red's drills locked Langton in place. The power of space, but it's not strong enough. Langton's complexion turned red, but he was still able to move under the lock of the crimson electric drill. The forging hammer in his hand swung recklessly, smashing the locking drill. Louis' eyelids were twitching wildly. This Langton was ridiculously strong. Crimson drill told to turn. Louis increased the lock of the control force. The body penetrated Langton's body at a speed of Mach 50. The crimson electric drill rotated to the limit and exploded. Crimson electric drill .7 combos. Boom. Tick. Hot blood dripped onto the ground drop by drop. This was from Langton's blood. He was injured. Under Louis' attack, Langton's proud and strong body was actually injured. The dwarf's onlookers were all shocked. Oh my god, Langton, are you hurt? When was the last time Langton got hurt? The great god of forging, this human being is simply too powerful. When all the dwarfs were amazed at Louis' strength, Louis was the most speechless one. Although the space of the crimson electric drill was locked, it was destroyed by Langton. However, that is still a 17-hit combo of the crimson electric drill. Are you bleeding a little? Is it over? Chapter 70. Langton's face was a little ugly. How long had he not been injured like this? Human, I admit that you are a strong man, but it's not enough. The great Langton will never be defeated. Langton shouted loudly. The situation in the sky suddenly changed, and the power of the hurricane wandered, dispersed, and gathered in the sky. The storm is gathering, and even the arena has been affected. The center of the storm stared at Louis like a huge amount of eyes. This is the power of Storm Hammer, and Langton happens to be able to control it. You are qualified to build armor for me. Louis looked at Langton's strength with satisfaction. Majestic. Powerful. The breath of Storm Hammer and Langton echoed. With such a tacit understanding, Yan is undoubtedly the forger of this Storm Hammer. If we say, Mjolnir is the king of dwarf. Itri tailor-made for Thor. Then the forger of the Hammer of Storms, Langton, has forging strength comparable to that of the dwarf king. Hearing Louis' words, Langton groaned. He felt that Louis was mocking him. If he wanted Langton to build armor, he had to defeat him. The power of the storm swept the audience. Like a sharp knife, trying to chop Louis into pieces. Snapped. Louis snapped his fingers, and the Fuzzy's armor on his body began to change. The silver black began to recede, and the bright red like blood diffused, and the blood energy flowing in the blood energy tube was Black's blood energy. This is metamorphosis where the blood has evolved to the extreme, and it is now stimulated in advance. Fuzzy's burst form. Louis said softly. This is his first attempt at using Fuzzy's burst form. Every inch of his body is filled with absolute explosive power. This kind of power far exceeds that of Fuzzy's in common form, and Louis even feels that he can instantly kill Loki with a random blow. Loki in Asgard, far away in Asgard, sneezed. Loki, I don't know why, I always feel offended. Tread. Louis stepped forward, one step fell, and the ground of the arena shattered instantly, just a random step, and the power burst out a small shockwave. Langton's face became serious, and he took a few steps back. Shockwave barely came to his feet, the gravel was sharp, and the irregular spider web spread to everything around. Terrible power. Langton couldn't help admiring. This is how he felt the breath of the treasure, the powerful armor. As long as I win, this piece of armor will be mine. Langton laughed loudly, with longing for fuzzies in his eyes. Then try it. Louis snorted coldly. The aura on his body spread out, and he even fought against the eye of the storm in the sky. Huge amounts of blood, the symbol in red, pierced the sky and drove the eye of the storm aside. This is a battle of the strongest. Even the other 8 great divine kingdoms could vaguely feel the fighting atmosphere here. Langton didn't want to wait any longer. Louis was gathering momentum, and Langton wanted to interrupt him. With huge amounts of storm hammer in his hand, he swung it like nothing, sweeping away all enemies. Just the huge amounts of weight make people feel the pressure. The space is broken by the waved power. Louis looked at Langton, who was attacking with cold eyes, and held the exclusive weapon SB555T in the burst form as a photon destruction sword in his hand. This is the first time Louis has used the burst form, and it is also the first time he has used this weapon. In order to cooperate with the burst form, this weapon can only be used in the burst form regardless of its weight or energy. Cut! Louis shouted loudly, looking at Langton, who was attacking. The photon destruction sword swung very slowly, but directly crossed the spatial dimension. When Langton was still more than 10 meters away from Louis, he cut out. Huge amounts of the blade fell on the hammer of the storm. The crystallization of wisdom from the 2 worlds collides together. One side is the forging peak of Wordheim, and the other side is the crystallization of Earth's technology. With majestic power, 2 phases collide. Boom! The huge amounts of explosion destroyed the space in the arena, and the unscrupulous storm of power began to sweep outside the arena. The previous dwarf kings who built the arena probably never imagined that the power of a battle would explode to such an extent. Many of the dwarfs living in Wordheim are common dwarfs, and they have no power to protect themselves. When faced with such a storm of power, they can only watch helplessly. Wait to die. The dwarf king Itri had noticed this battle a long time ago, but even he didn't react. A power storm has formed and is intensifying. Great forging god, are you going to abandon us? May the fire and metal be with us forever. A great battle is a glorious death. At the very center of the power storm, the hammer of the storm sheltered Langton, who was knocked out by huge amounts of power. But that's all. The hammer of the storm itself is somewhat difficult to protect itself in such a vortex. In the burst form, Fuzzies held the photon destruction sword in his hand, cut a path in the power storm, and came to Langton's side. The birth of this power storm, the aftermath of the battle, is just a fuse. Louis looked at the power enough to destroy the world with a wry smile, put Langton on his back, and prepared to look for the exit. I need to find a stable space and teleport out through the space. Louis shouted. The Mjolnir inside hums and jumps out of space. The hammer of the storm also responded, and the 2 hammers of the same origin supported a stable space for Louis. Using the power of the space gem, Louis opened the space barrier, carried Langton on his back, took 2 hammers, and drilled in. Outside of the power storm, most of Vathium's town has been destroyed. Louis watched the storm helplessly, as if he had gotten into trouble. Could it be that he accidentally destroyed a kingdom of God? He won't take the blame for it. Just when Louis was thinking about whether to return to the earth to avoid the limelight, a gold sledgehammer fell from the sky, smacking heavily on the force storm. Hammer after hammer. Like forging, every hammer seems to squeeze the power storm. The dwarf king in golden armor Itri was also relieved when he saw the giant hammer appearing in the sky. Across the space distance, came to the front of Louis. Although he was wearing golden armor, the dwarf king's height seemed a little shorter than Kamen's dwarf. Human? You almost destroyed my country. Yitri looked at Louis dissatisfied. His eyes turned to Langton, who was slowly waking up, and his tone became even more angry. Langton, you still endanger the peace of Wordheim. As the king of dwarf, I will expel you and never return. And you, human beings, are not allowed to enter Wordheim for life. King Dwarf issued the final expulsion order, representing the will of the entire Wordheim kingdom. Both Louis and Langton felt unwelcome from Wordheim. Chapter 71. This represents the will of the world. Both Louis and Langton felt the world was pushing them out. Lewis glanced at Langdon apologetically. Although the cause of this incident was a coincidence, Lewis was also partly responsible. Langdon gave Eitri a deep look, but said nothing. He silently returned to his workshop, and after a while, he came out with a package on his back. The hammer of the storm turned into a small necklace and hung it around Langdon's neck. Human powerhouse, I may need to stay with you for a while. But don't worry, I will pay you. If you beat me once, I will build you a weapon. If you help me once, I can only repay you with a weapon. Langdon sighed and said to Lewis. The dwarfs expelled by Wertheim basically drifted to various places in the 890 universe, making a living by building weapons. The weapons produced by the dwarf family are exquisite and durable. This also caused the dwarf race to be a very popular race in the universe. Together with the elves of Alfheim, they are listed as one of the best-selling races in the universe. Therefore, a dwarf family wandering alone in the universe can easily become the prey of interstellar traffickers. Lewis looked at Langdon, and the ecstasy in his heart was beyond words. This is a forging master of the dwarf family, and a strong man of the dwarf family. Lewis was almost incoherent, because Langdon chose to follow him, which was beyond his expectation. Lewis, who calmed himself down, immediately said, "You are very welcome, Langdon, I will prepare the best workshop for you, as well as rare minerals." Langdon nodded, still recovering from the sentimentality of being away from home. Lewis opened the space barrier, and the location was set in New York. He needed to arrange a place for Langdon to live. There are many tall buildings, and huge amounts of glass curtain walls reflect the blue sky. This was the first time Langdon had seen such a scene. "This is Midgard," Langdon said incredulously. "This is not the same as the Earth he imagined. More than 2,000 years ago, when I came to Midgard, it was still a large area of mountains and forests. Now it looks like a place where gods live." Lewis looked at Langdon, who had never seen the world, and thought that the technological development of Asgard and Wertheim had entered a bottleneck period. Therefore, such changes will not occur within a few thousand years. But the technological development of mankind has only just begun. Langdon does as the Romans do, and he has basically handed himself over to Lewis. "You can live here first, and you can call a nanny if you need anything. I still have some things to deal with." Lewis brought Langdon to the villa area under Stark Industries, where there are many empty villas. Anyway, Langdon was only allowed to live there for a while. Langdon didn't have any temper either, and he needed some time to think about his future. Lewis gave Langdon a mobile phone and a phone number, so that he could call himself if he had a stomachache. Then Lewis opened the space barrier and returned to the small town in New Mexico. If it wasn't for the feeling that the town had changed, Lewis might still be interested in chatting with Langdon. New Mexico. Phil Coulson, Hawkeye, and General Ross looked at the messy prison, and their faces were so dark that they could drip water. Thor escapes from prison. As a mysterious figure with no background, Phil Coulson thought he was insane, so he didn't arrange too many guards. As the only prison in this small town, there were only 5 prisoners at most. 4 of them are car thieves and punks. No one knew that a big fish broke in this time. As the Prince of Asgard, Thor is born with the demeanor of a king. It was easy to convince the 5 little ones. Just when most people were focusing on finding Mjolnir, Thor took the opportunity to move. Knocked out the prison guard and successfully escaped from the prison. When Lewis came back, he saw Thor hiding in a young man's home, wearing a non-mainstream cyberpunk style. Not to mention, as long as you are a prince, you can look good in anything you wear. However, the town is only a little bigger. According to the family background of several young men, Phil Coulson and others soon surrounded Thor's place. "Give up resistance, I don't know what organization you are from, but S.H.I.E.L.D. is not something you can provoke," Phil Coulson said coldly. Swish! The troops with live ammunition raised their guns in unison and aimed at Thor's hiding place. "What should we do, Boss Thor? We are surrounded." A little boy was crying. This was the first time he had seen such a scene. "Their target is me. If you go out, nothing will happen," Thor said calmly. "Knowing this organization called S.H.I.E.L.D., the goal is yourself." "But, boss, how do you experience it?" "Don't worry, your boss is a god, and nothing will happen." Thor squeezed out a smile. Watching the few men he had just recruited go out one by one, Thor slammed his fist hard on the ground. Pat! The bright red blood told Thor that he is no longer a god. Even though he lost his divine power, he was only a little stronger than the common people. Louis sighed when he saw Thor's behavior. Thor was still too young. If it was me, I would never do such a stupid operation. Even if it is to let these subordinates escape separately and buy time for themselves, it is better than what they are doing now. The 5 little ones quickly reached the safe zone, and they all breathed a sigh of relief. Just when they thought they were safe, General Ross waved his hand lightly, and the 5 young men were immediately pushed to the ground. Ross, known as General Thunder, has always had only purpose in his eyes. There are no morals and rules. As long as Thor can be caught, it doesn't matter if these 5 people are dead. Thor, who was immersed in his incompetence, heard the calls for help from the younger brothers outside. "Brother, help me. They don't keep their promises. Please 2.9s, don't kill me." The shout hit Thor's nerves. "Thor, surrender, come out obediently, I can still let them go, otherwise." General Ross sneered, and pointed his pistol at the head of one of them. Boom! His head burst like a watermelon, and the splash of blood almost made everyone present feel sick. Even Hawkeye and Phil Coulson, who are used to the scene, felt uncomfortable. But General Ross has power second only to fury, and no one can tell him what to do. "Thor, this is just the beginning." General Ross took the towel handed over by his subordinates and casually wiped the blood spattered on his face. "Every minute, I will kill one person, and when the rest of the people are dead, I will blast here. I don't care if you live or die. Now, the countdown begins." Chapter 72. Even Louis frowned when he saw what General Ross did. As expected of General Thunder, the means of doing things is cruel and merciless. Thor's eyes were full of murderous intent. If he still had divine power, he would definitely rush out and kill all these bastards. But now he is just a god who has lost his power. There was nothing he could do. The countdown of General Ross entered the end of the first minute. "No, don't kill me. I was coerced, he coerced us to escape from prison. Please, General, don't kill me." 6. 5. 4, boom. Gunshots rang out again, and the number of servings did not come to an end at all. Another body fell to the ground. "I'm really sorry. I accidentally slipped my hand. When I'm old, I just can't control myself," General Ross said in an apologetic tone. Indifferent. Cruel. With it comes the fear of not knowing when you will die. "There are 3 more, you still have 3 minutes. General Ross said cruelly. The tone did not treat these few people as human beings at all. "Should I continue to hide? Be a coward. What a cruel person. You can't save anyone, you just take them to death." General Ross said mockingly that he was prodding Thor. Thor thought of the reason why he was demoted to the earth, and his eyes were full of remorse. The count on the other side has come to tens of seconds. Plus. Hatred. 8. General Ross said calmly. Every report seems to be mocking Thor's incompetence. No one knows when General Ross will slip. Tick. Tick. It was the sound of dripping sweat. "Stop it," Thor yelled loudly. A body that was much thinner than before slowly walked out of the house. Now Thor can't see that he is the Prince of Asgard at all, and the torture he suffered in prison has made him sloppy and tattered. Throw it in a slum casually, and you won't feel disobedient in the slightest. Although it is still a handsome face, but handsomeness has no effect in front of strength. It seems that our Mr. Tower is very sensible. General Ross sneered. "Let them go," Thor said in a deep voice. General Ross waved his hand, and the remaining 3 fled immediately. "It's such a touching camaraderie that they gave up on you and ran away," General Ross said with a smile. Thor didn't speak. He didn't expect much loyalty from these temporary recruits. Looking at the unarmed Thor, General Ross said, "Are you going by yourself, or are we going to tie you unconscious and take you away?" Thor didn't speak. His cold eyes engraved the appearance of General Ross deeply in his mind. Someday he'll have his revenge, on S.H.I.E.L.D., on General Ross. Thor was escorted to a special observation room to prevent Thor from escaping again. Facing such a boss, both Phil Coulson and Hawkeye felt a bit difficult to deal with. "I heard about General Ross' iron blood and cruelty when he was in SHIELD. Seeing it now, it really lives up to its reputation. With names like that, God knows why Fury made General Ross a member of the Avengers, and the leader." Louis also has a new sense of General Ross's view. At first he just thought this guy was unreasonable. Now Lewis hated General Ross a little. I really want to find a chance to kill him. Or hand General Ross over to Thor for execution to get closer to Asgard. Lewis hadn't figured it out yet. It's just that on Lewis' death blacklist, General Ross's name has been silently marked with a cross. And in faraway Asgard, Loki sneaked into Asgard's treasury while Odin was meeting with Dwarf King Idri. As early as in the fight with the Frost Titan, Loki found that his skin would turn blue when attacked by the Frost Titan. Combined with Odin's completely different attitude towards Thor and himself, this gave Loki a guess in his mind. Finally, when he saw the treasure of the Frost Titan in the treasury. The Frost Coffin, Loki once felt a strange change in the blood in his body. Loki carefully touched this Frost Titan fetish with his hand, the extremely cold breath almost enveloped everything, but for Loki it was not hurt at all. The blood of the Frost Titan sleeping in his body began to recover, and Loki's body also transformed into an frost blue for a while. Odin, who has seen everything, rushed to the treasure house immediately, but he faced a Loki who had already guessed the truth. "I'm the Frost Titan, father." Loki questioned with an affirmative tone. Odin sighed, not expecting that this hadn't been hidden from Loki. "You will always be my child." Odin wanted to redeem this relationship, so he told the truth back then. "Loki, you and Thor are both born to be kings, I hope Asgard and Jotunheim can let go of their hatred. The purpose of adopting Loki is that Thor and Loki can be the kings of Asgard and Jotunheim, so that the two worlds will no longer be hostile. Why must it be me? You have always told me that I am a Protoss of Asgard, and now you are telling me to become the king of the Frost Titan. Everything is decided by you, you have never considered my feelings, father." Loki's eyes are red 310, like an angry lion. And at the moment, the young male lion is challenging the status of the Lion King. Odin tried to explain, but Loki's chow hit the old man. During this time, the war between Frost Titan and Asgard exhausted Odin even more. Under the double pressure, Odin passed out on the ground without saying a word. "Guard, guard!" Loki yelled in a panic. Although he was questioning Odin, he never thought that something would happen to Odin. Odin was soon helped to the bed by the guards and the goddess Frigga, who rushed over. "It's Odin's sleep." Frigga felt Odin's aura and breathed a sigh of relief, although this time it's earlier, but fortunately it's not other problems. "Don't worry, Loki." Loki looked at the sleeping Odin with some guilt, not knowing what attitude he should take to face him. "Mother, when will father and king wake up?" "I don't know, the usual eye of Odin will be ready, but this time it's a bit special, maybe there are other reasons." "Then father, why do you want to hide my life experience?" "I was picked up by him." Frigga was stunned for a moment, took Loki's hand, and comforted him. "That's because I don't want you to feel different from others, it's to protect you, your father and I treat you as our own child." Chapter 73. Loki nodded calmly, but when he lowered his head, a trace of hostility flashed in his eyes. Frigga took Odin's scepter, the gun of eternity, and handed it to Loki. Loki froze for a moment, not understanding what Frigga meant. "In your father's absence, Loki, you will assume the role of King of Asgard." "Well, I'm the King of Asgard now." "Yes, you were King of Asgard before your father came to his senses." Frigga hopes that such a move can make Loki feel cared for. Neither I nor Odin have ever favored either of the two brothers. But Frigg didn't see the ambition hidden in Loki's eyes. He swore that he must do better than Thor, and as for Thor, stay on Earth forever. Loki sits on the throne of Asgard, feeling the pinnacle of power. Seems like something is missing? Ah, yes, Thor. As long as Thor returns, he will never be the only choice for the throne of Asgard. Loki supported his neck with one hand, each scheme flashed through his mind, and finally settled on one of them. Globe, New Mexico. Thor has been caught for days. There is no trial, no punishment. Thor felt as if he had been forgotten. Phil Coulson and others are discussing in the conference room. They've pretty much turned the town upside down, but haven't found any information about Mjolnir. The only mysterious person is Thor. Is it really necessary to take that guy who seems to have a mental problem back? General Ross asked doubtfully. According to him, a lunatic like Thor should just be killed. He said he was from Asgard, the Prince of Asgard. I think it is necessary to investigate further. Phil Coulson's keen sense of smell as an agent made him feel that the things inside were not so simple. You can do whatever you want, and this person will be handed over to you. General Ross is not interested in Thor. He extracted Thor's blood, which research showed was nothing more than a common human. General Ross also knows that it is very difficult to find an existence like Dr. Banner. It's a pity that Dr. Banner was instantly killed by Lewis's combat power ceiling, leaving no bones left. This is the eternal pain in the heart of General Ross. At this meeting, it was decided that S.H.I.E.L.D. is preparing to evacuate from New Mexico State. They've wasted a lot of resources here. And, with all three codders here, Director Nick Fury also feels a little empty inside SHIELD. So an evacuation order was issued. No matter how unhappy he was, Fury realized that Excellence human resources could no longer be wasted. Get ready to evacuate, let the researchers go first. General Ross gave the order. All okay, Phil Coulson and Hawkeye ready to execute. Suddenly the mountains shook for a while. The entire conference room was shaking, and even the entire town felt the shock. What's going on? General Ross shouted. Report, sir, a strange metal creature appeared in the town. Immediately a soldier came in and reported. Metal beings. General Ross and Phil Coulson thought of someone at the same time. Louis, sigh. Which BD is slandering himself? Louis naturally also felt the appearance of the destroyer armor, when he didn't interfere too much with Loki's plot line. Loki has come to this point, the destroyer is only eligible to command the Odin scepter. Odin wouldn't do that. Then, it could only be Loki who became the proxy king. Through the window, Louis could see the destroyer whose whole body reflected metallic luster, and the bright yellow light in his body contained extremely powerful power. Seriously, this is one of the most powerful armors in the Marvel Universe. This is the armor that Odin built against the Celestials. It's a pity that it was used by Loki. The power displayed by the uncontrolled destroyer is not worth mentioning at all. He was directly crushed by Thor, who had recovered his divine power. However, there is no Mjolnir now, and Thor, who is not on the original plot line, whether he can recover his divine power is still unknown. The tall hunters searched for Thor's traces in the small town, and at the same time destroyed them aimlessly. In the absence of Thor, it is Loki's command to let Thor appear through destruction. It's just that Loki never imagined that Thor was still imprisoned by SHIELD. What the destroyer has done has violated the bottom line of S.H.I.E.L.D. in Avengers. General Ross looked at the destroyer even more rage. Although he doesn't pay attention to the lives of these civilians, the destroyer's actions are undoubtedly provocative. Roar! General Ross let out a roar, snarling, and Red's muscles knotted and spread. The body size also became taller, and General Ross, who had completely turned into a Red Titan, was almost as tall as the destroyer. You PD me off, General Ross snarled loudly at the destroyer. He rushed forward with all his strength, and punched the destroyer back a few steps. He hates armor the most, and it's something he'll never forget, the humiliation of getting killed by a piece of red armor. This is the hero of the Avengers. The Red King. Phil Coulson saw General Ross's transformation form for the first time. No wonder the code name is Red King. It looks really powerful, and full of sense. The destroyer was attacked before he reacted and put General Ross in the hostile sequence. Find hostile targets, the combat level is the most advanced. The destroyer started the battle procedure, and the energy in his body was still running at high speed. At the seams of the armor, he could vaguely see bright yellow energy surging. Come! General Ross vented his displeasure at being crushed by Louis on the destroyer. But he ignored that his attack did not have the slightest impact on the destroyer. The destroyer's material is even stronger than Asgard's URU metal, harder than Mjolnir. The Red Titan rode on the destroyer, punching punch after punch, hitting really well. But the destroyer, who had entered the fighting state, raised his hand lightly, and caught the Red Titan's falling fist. With a casual flick, several thousand people will come to the hospital to retaliate. The Red Titan rolled several times on the ground, and fell a little dizzy. General Ross never thought at all that the armor that he was pressing down on, but now waving his hands is such a powerful force. He had no time to think. The destroyer was extremely fast, and appeared beside the Red Titan in the next instant. The heavy fist slammed into the ground. Bang! The ground is deeply sunken. Chapter 74. Under the violent hammer of the destroyer, the Red Titan's head was smashed into the ground immediately. Only half of his body was left twitching outside. Hiss! Everyone gasped. It was such a simple battle that was brutal to the limit. The power displayed by the destroyer is too powerful, too invincible. Where did such a monster come from? Phil Coulson asked gravely. The peak combat power on his side was actually instantly killed. Phil Coulson felt that this world was very absurd. Red King, shouldn't it be very powerful? He was so majestic before, how could he be counter-killed in an instant, or the kind that has no resistance? Phil Coulson felt that his brain was not enough, and his brain circuit really couldn't understand such a reversal. Hawkeye's reaction was faster, seeing that the destroyer was also preparing to attack the Red King. Immediately guessing that the Red King might still be alive, he took out his own bow and arrow and shot at the destroyer. He wanted to attract the attention of the destroyer. Call out! The high-speed rotating arrows precisely hit the destroyer's chest. But unscathed. Ding! The crisp thud 640 sounded a little ridiculous, and it didn't even trigger the destroyer's hostile program. Scraping! Such a light attack is nothing more than scraping for the destroyer. Not even a layer of shack can be scraped off. Hawkeye's face darkened. Without saying a word, he took out several arrows loaded with special arrows from his back. Whoosh! A series of dense explosions exploded flames on the destroyer's body, covering the entire destroyer in flames. Under attack, confirm the hostile target. The mechanical sound of the destroyer sounded. The flames of the explosion did not affect the destroyer in the slightest. But with the destroyer's hostile program activated, that's enough. Hawkeye didn't intend to fight the metal monster, and found that he had offended the destroyer, and immediately began to dodge and flee. The destroyer also gave up lying in the pothole, and has not been slowed down by God General Ross. The data scanning of the double pupils showed the basic data of Hawkeye. It is so weak that it can be crushed to death with a light pinch. Seeing Hawkeye, who was about to escape and hide, destroyer released energy lightning from both hands. Crackling! Dense energy lightning began to gather, rushing towards Hawkeye. This is just the most common attack for the destroyer, but for the Hawkeye, it's dead on touch. Hawkeye didn't think about resisting at all, and ran away frantically, wanting to stay away from the attack range of the energy lightning. Boom! Boom! The attack failed, but the constant energy lightning continued, as if the consumption could not be seen. Roar! The roar of the Red King came from behind the destroyer. He was not injured, but was a little confused by the heavy punch. Now that he recovered, he saw that Hawkeye, who was also a member of the Avengers Alliance, was under attack, and immediately rage-pinned the destroyer to the ground from behind. The fist the size of a sandbag waved and hammered with all its strength. Unleash your power! Punch after punch, the destroyer's head was smashed into the ground abruptly. But the metal material is not affected at all, even shape-shifting is not done. Phil Coulson, go get Louis here! General Ross yelled loudly. Now I can still suppress the destroyer, and with Hawkeye's restraint, there is no problem in dealing with it. But if you want to deal with this big guy, you can only hand it over to Louis. General Ross originally suspected that this metal monster was built by Louis, which was a bit too fierce. Louis stood on the balcony of the hotel, watching the battle in the distance. At the same time, in his heart, he silently estimated the combat effectiveness of the destroyer. This thing was built by Odin to deal with the members of the Celestial Group. According to legend, a Celestial Group was once wiped out. But now it seems that the rumors are wrong. The strength and energy fluctuations displayed by the destroyer are all within a fag, Louis's acceptable range. However, just to be on the safe side, Louis opened the space barrier and returned to New York. Langton was carving runes inside the villa. When he saw Louis appearing, he immediately put down his work. What are you doing? Louis looked at the densely carved ceiling. Suddenly, I felt that it would be better for me to build a workshop for Langton as soon as possible. This house is gorgeous, but it's not practical. Even carving runes is troublesome. Langton complained. He spent a lot of effort, and found the right power to carry out the rune carving. 2 black lines appeared on Louis' forehead, and Langton's performance was really unexpected, making people dumbfounded. This is Earth, not Wordheim. Not all houses are made of magic materials. Louis explained helplessly. Come with me, I need your help. After all, Louis opened the space barrier. Langton jumped off the ladder and plunged into the space barrier, followed by Louis. The battle in the distance continues. Langton's eyes widened, looking at the destroyer who was fighting the Red King. This. Langton was incoherent, almost speechless. Obviously, he definitely recognized the destroyer. This is the destroyer armor? What's the situation? Is Odin planning to destroy the Earth? Langton looked at the battle carefully, and quickly overturned his previous conclusions. No, the power is too weak, no one is controlling it, no wonder. However, why is the destroyer here? Only those who have the Odin scepter can refer to it. Could it be that? Langton glanced at Lewis beside him, and said slowly, Odin was killed. Ahem. Lewis choked on Langton's words. Of course not. No other powerhouse in level Godfather can die so easily. Lewis denied Langton's guess without even thinking about it. In the entire universe, there are very few people who can kill Odin. Lewis looked at the destroyer who resisted the Red King's attack and knocked the Red King into the air with an energy lightning, and said in a deep voice, Do you know how to deal with it? Langton asked this question. This is a bit difficult. The destroyer's metal is harder than you. It has been endowed with magic runes by Odin, and it also possesses part of Odin's power. It is very difficult to defeat. Langton frowned. It was originally planned to build a weapon for Lewis and it was over. In the end, what kind of gods did I meet as my employer? The destroyers have come out, is the next step ready to challenge the celestial group? Is there nothing harder than this metal? URU is the hardest metal in Asgard and even the entire universe. Even the Odin scepter is made of URU. If you want to destroy the body of the destroyer, you can only rely on weapons made of URU metal. After thinking for a while, Langton took out his storm hammer and handed it to Lewis. Chapter 75. Use it, as long as you have enough power, you can destroy the destroyer. It's nothing more than a destroyer that no one controls. The Odin Regiment's destroyer group relies not only on the destroyer, but also on Odin's originally powerful divine power. Langton told the truth of the matter. The destroyer has always been a myth, considered the pinnacle of Asgard. But Odin is the existence that supports the destroyer to become stronger. Lewis nodded. Langton's words were exactly the same as what Lewis originally thought. But seeing Langton's storm hammer, Lewis also took out Mjolnir from the space. Jingle! The two hammers collided together, and there was a sense of competition between them. This is Mjolnir? Why is Thor's weapon in your hand? Langston recognized Mjolnir. To be precise, the Hammer of the Storm was created by Langdon, ready to challenge Mjolnir, who was created by King Dwarf. I'll talk about this later, I'll go and get rid of this guy first. By the way, can you smelt this thing and recycle it? Lewis looked at the destroyer, the metal shell. In Lewis' opinion, at least 2 powerful armors could be built. Langton took a deep breath, not expecting Lewis to actually make such a plan. No one has ever dared to fight the destroyer's idea, which is tantamount to provoking Asgard. But Lewis' words reminded Langton. It seems to work. Leave it to me, there is no metal in the world that dwarf can't smelt, or a weapon that can't be forged. Langton is quite confident that even if it is the supreme masterpiece of Asgard craftsmen, if it is placed in his own hands, he will still have to go back to the furnace and rebuild it. Bang bang bang! Bang bang bang! There was a series of hasty knocks on the door. Phil Coulson never imagined that the matter would eventually evolve into that he would come to Lewis for help. What's the matter? Lewis asked Langton to keep silent. Mr. Lewis, please help us, that metal monster outside, we are not opponents. Phil Coulson said. He ran over and was a little out of breath now. Solving it, what good can I do? Lewis squinted his eyes slightly, sitting on the ground and raising his price. Mr. Louis, you're from S.H.I.E.L.D. Phil Coulson yelled. What Lewis did was obviously blackmailing. Are you blaming me? Lewis' cold voice sounded. Don't dare. Phil Coulson shuddered. He almost forgot that Lewis was able to beat the Red King, and he was the ceiling of combat power. So, what benefits are you going to give me? Lewis suddenly became a little anxious. Anyway, Red King and Hawkeye can drag for a while, crashing. It should be Fury who cares most about the life and death of the Red King and Hawkeye. I need to contact director Nick Fury. Phil Coulson was out of control. Louis didn't speak. Phil Coulson had called Fury. Phil Coulson, what's up? Fury had heard too much bad news lately. Hopefully, by dispatching General Ross this time, the Avengers can bring themselves good news. Chief, we have a metal monster. General Ross and Barton are fighting hard, and Mr. Louis is there, but Phil Coulson doesn't know how to fight Fury. Lewis sit on the ground and raise the price thing. What did he ask for? Fury asked, fighting back his anger. As director, the most important thing he should consider is the superhero's life. Originally there were only a few superheroes, in case 2 died in New Mexico. The Avengers Alliance has really become an empty shell. Moreover, General Ross is still one of the powerful generals in the military. If something happened to General Ross, he himself, SHIELD director, could not get away with it. So, save. Must be saved. He didn't say. Phil Coulson could feel the rage coming through the phone. Then you just ask him and give him the phone. But Mr. Louis never let me in. Phil Coulson wants to cry but has no tears. As an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D, he really has no temper in front of Louis. Louis's identity, status, and strength can ignore Phil Coulson. Phil Coulson's aura when facing Thor was gone in an instant. Phil Coulson, you. Fury was really going to be mad at Phil Coulson. While Fury was talking to Phil Coulson, Louis was whispering to Langton what metal to use for SHIELD. Mr. Louis, the vibranium you mentioned is called sound-absorbing steel in the universe. It is a very rare metal. As for the adamantium and cabernet alloy you mentioned, I don't know. If there is, it's best to take a look. Langton was also a little excited. He didn't expect that there would be sound-absorbing steel, vibranium, a rare metal in the universe, on Earth. There are also alloys that sound awesome. It seems that following Mr. Louis to Earth is indeed a good choice. After discussing with Langton, Louis had a plan in mind. Phil Coulson, I need a large quantity of vibranium metal. Louis's voice came from inside the door. No, it's impossible. Before Fury could answer, Phil Coulson was the first to jump up. Vibranium costs $10,000 per gram, and Louis's large batches are definitely not a matter of 1 or 2 grams. The entire S.H.I.E.L.D does not know if it can scrape together 1 or 200 grams. This is not considered a strategic material, but a research material for some researchers. S.H.I.E.L.D is also dreaming of replicating vibranium. Louis, you have another request. S.H.I.E.L.D does not have a large batch, no more than 200 grams. Fury's voice was turned on so that Louis could hear it. That's 200 grams, but it's not enough for me to make a move. I also need adamantium and the synthesis formula of carbona alloy. Louis hadn't planned on getting much vibranium in the first place. There's as much of this stuff as you want in Wakanda, and whether you steal it or rob it, Louis can always get it. The ultimate goal of Louis is still the synthesis formula of adamantium and cabernet alloy. Phil Coulson and Fury were silent at the same time, as Louis demanded, whether high or low. 1. I can only give 1 synthesis formula. Fury thought for a while and said. He was testing Louis' bottom line. 1 kind, I want adamantium synthesis formula. But need some samples of adamantium. Cabernet alloy, I need kilograms. Louis made a tone that he was at a disadvantage, but Louis behind the door was already happy. Langton has made it clear that if it is an alloy, he can analyze the metal composition inside by means of tempering. The synthesis formula is just a cover. Hearing Louis's concession, Fury immediately said, it's a deal, that's it. Things I'll send to Stark Industries but... You get what you pay for, Louis, don't be lazy. Louis showed a confident smile, and said, Director Nick Fury, you can rest assured to receive the goods, I am the Crown reputation. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you are notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.